Are you ready?
You're listening to DJ Oz Ozzy.
Would you believe me when I tell you, you are the queen of my heart? Please don't deceive me when I hurt you, just ain't the way it seems. Can you feel my love buzz? 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 Would you believe me when I tell you, you are the queen of my heart? Please don't deceive me when I hurt you, just ain't the way it seems. Can you feel my love buzz? Can you feel my love buzz? Can you feel my love buzz? Can you feel my love buzz?
But if evolution is real, and if there is this constant, I don't know, but it's visible. Like you can measure it in certain animals.
You can measure adaptation.
Yeah.
But there's no evidence that in fact, I think we've kind of given up on the idea of evolution. The theory of evolution as articulated by Darwin is like kind of not true. Right?
In what sense?
Well, in the most basic sense, the idea that, all life emerged from a single cell organism and over time, and there would be a fossil record of that, and there's not. And
There's not a fossil record of transitionary species, like species that are adapting to its environment.
There's
and they
tons
develop...
of record of adaptation, and you see it in your own life. I mean, I have a lot of dogs. I see adaptation in dogs, through the litter to litter. But no, there's no evidence at all zero, that, people, evolve seamlessly from a single cell amoeba. No, there's not. There's no chain in the fossil record of that at all. And that's why you don't actually hear you hear them make reference to evolution, because the theory of adaptation is clearly, obviously true. But Darwin's theory's totally that's why it's still a theory almost 200 years later, No, we have not found that at all. And I can't even guess. I mean, I have my own theories on it, but they're not proven.
What are your theories?
God created people, distinctly, and animals. I mean, I think what every person on Earth thought until the mid-19th century, actually.
Right, but
it's not a new idea.
They didn't have computers. They didn't have a general understanding that we have today of the process.
Do you think we understand more now?
Yes.
Really?
You don't think that we understand more today?
We understand way less. We understand so little that we're actually sitting here allowing, a bunch of greedy, stupid, childless software engineers in Northern California to flirt with the extinction of mankind.
Good morning, my beauties and bees. Hello. Welcome to, let me turn the light on. Welcome to an episode of Live from the Hive. This is the last episode from this location. It should be crazy to think about. I know the move is here. But yeah, next weekend, I don't know if I will be. I'm either moving next weekend or the weekend after that, depending on a couple of different factors. One of the factors, I'd have to go stay in Missouri for a week, and I don't want to do that, but I will if I have to. But regardless, yeah, this will be the last time broadcasting from this space, and the last time you'll see this background and everything. So say goodbye to Hive 2.0 and look forward to seeing Hive 3.0, because Hive 3.0 is coming to you from the depths of West Texas, where I will be moving. So look forward to big changes here. This does mean that next weekend's show will probably not be live. I'm probably going to do a pre-recorded thing, probably this weekend, to premiere next week. And other than that, I mean, everything should go back to the regular schedule. All the regular stuff during the week is scheduled still the same. So there's still, my memes are all coming at you. So if you don't follow my community page, that's half of what I do here is do science memes. So cryptid memes, and yeah, go check those out. And I have a premiere on Wednesday and Friday. Friday is, of course, CrypticCorner, and that's still going to continue on. There's not going to be any break in that or anything. But just wanted to say, next Saturday, for the first time in forever, I will not be here Saturday, 9:30 a.m. live from the Hive. I will be... I may come out to you from the road for a minute. I don't know exactly what I'm just saying there may be something live next Saturday, but it won't be live from the Hive. It won't be live from the Hive with the segments and everything and CrypticCorner. So just to let you know, if I do go live, it may be like something squirrely, like a driving stream, or maybe coming at you live from a location or something like that. But we will see what the future holds. Yeah, I'm excited though. Turning over a new leaf in life and all that good stuff. But in the meantime, the show must go on. I still got to keep things rolling. So we are going to we're going to do a great show today. We have we have melon heads at the top of the show. Do you know what a melon head is? No? Well, you're going to find out. You might know what a melon head is if you're from a strange assortment of states that are Ohio, Michigan, and Connecticut, which is where melon heads are from. But we'll get to that in just a minute. We do have, I opened up with some Dumb Tucker because we have more Dumb Tucker to come. Apparently, Tucker was attacked by demons while he was sleeping in his bed. So we got that. And also, since that was so short, I wanted to cover it. We also got Ray Comfort coming up there. They're both going to get weird with it about demons. So stick around for that. You know, I love that topic. And then at the end of the show, in honor of my move to West Texas, we are going to be discussing the problematic taxonomy of the Texas grizzly bear at the end of the show, and some, I don't know if I want to call it fake lore or not, but definitely some folklore built around it. I'm not going to say that there wasn't any Texas grizzlies, because there was. There's at least one. But we'll get to that as the show rolls on. You know what? I am going to give you a warning right now, because I'm just starting to feel a hot flash coming on. I have not been, like, all this week, I don't know if I got a bug or if it's just nerves about the moving, but I have been getting all hot and nauseous in the mornings between about this time and noon. So if I get icky, I'll switch to like a clip video so I can go run to the bathroom. But I have literally been, let's say a nice way to say this, I've been purging like on a daily basis, like not obviously not on purpose. I get up and like start moving around and pack, and I get a lot lightheaded and have to run to the bathroom. It's been in cycle. It's been slow moving though, because that means like I can get about a box packed before I have to go sit down or go lay down, and I have to sit down or lay down for freaking ever to cool off and turn the fans on. I think that maybe, once I get to moving again and lose some of this weight, I might feel better too. But that's all coming up in the future. But for right now, the future is looking like melon heads, and the future is looking like CrypticCorner. So I will see you guys over in CrypticCorner in just a moment. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee, and yeah, I'll see you guys right over there. Stick around. Hello, my beauties and bees, and welcome again to another installment of Cryptic Corner, where we explore the unexplained, supernatural, paranormal, and hidden, the mysterious, the alien, the accursed, and the forbidden. I'm your host, Miss Bumblebee, and today we're going to the lost recesses of Ohio, a place we've been before. But this isn't going to be just Ohio, because it's going to extend into Michigan. It's going to extend into Connecticut. It may have origins in Austria. But regardless, today, we are talking about melon heads. Do you know what a melon head is? A lot of people don't. It's not like a prominent cryptid. It's not like a mainstream. It's not your Bigfoot or even your Mothman. Because the concept of a melon head is really not attractive. Like Mothman is. You know how sexy Mothman is? I mean, everybody thinks Mothman's sexy. You know how that is? Yeah. It's like that for Mothman, but it's not like that for melon heads. Melon heads look more like Jason Voorhees without his hockey mask. They're not pretty folk. And what are they, and where are they, and why are they called melon heads? Why do they look like Jason Voorhees without his mask? Well, there's a lot of folklore, so that's going to take us a good hour at least just to dig into that before we start. And I'm going to stop and we're going to look at locations and stuff along the way. So if that sounds good to you, let's get started. We are going to be doing melon head time. Melon heads. There we go. This is Uncle Perry telling us about melon heads, the real story of the disfigured cannibalistic creatures. All right, we're going to make this happen. Let me know how the sound is, audio and all that stuff, if there's a problem, obviously. But buckle up. It's melon head time.
One misty evening, as darkness crept over the small town of Kirtland, Ohio, three friends, Jake, Sarah, and Mike, decided to uncover the truth behind the legend of the Melonheads. Armed with flashlights and a map of rumored Melonhead sightings, they ventured deep into the forest. As they trekked deeper, the trees seemed to close in around them, the air growing colder with each step. Suddenly, a rustling in the bushes made them freeze. Jack shone his flashlight towards the sound, revealing nothing.
Are we having problems already this morning, kids? Beauties and bees. Beauties and bees. Let's keep it together. We don't need to swarm. We have okay, did I lie about it? Okay, so what are we talking about here? Just a second, let me get caught up. Oh, hey, Spooky. I guess I could have said good morning to everybody. But, yeah, I usually do. I don't know why I missed a beat this morning. Got a lot going on around me, I'll just say that. But let's be civil. And be cool. Don't distract the stream from the topic. But I do like a little spice in the side chat. So feel free to disagree with me or about the subjects that we're talking about. But let's make sure we stay with the melon heads today, because I'm excited about this topic. Dave, I gotta ask. Dave, is everything okay there in Ohio? Like, are you guys okay? Do you need anything? Good morning, Spooky. Good to see you, Spooks. Sandy and Sumami are here, so I'm pretty sure my chat should be handled. The chat should be handled because, yeah, I got top-notch, moderation staff. Al Trucker, yeah, you're good. We're good. Let's continue on. Melonhead time.
But shadows. It's probably just an animal, Mike whispered, trying to sound brave. They pressed on, their nerves fraying with each passing minute. They reached an old, dilapidated building, its windows shattered and walls covered in graffiti.
This must be the place,
Sarah said, her voice trembling. As they approached, they heard faint, almost childlike whispers coming from inside. The friends exchanged worried glances, but pushed forward, curiosity overcoming fear. Inside.
Okay, so I don't know about anybody else here's childhood, but did your all's childhood include this, like going out to the haunted location or cursed building or whatever in the middle of nowhere? Did you do? It's not really urban exploration. It's more like rural exploration, or urban exploration when you were a youth. Let me do a poll. See if anybody did urban exploration. And I didn't do it legally as a kid either. I'm gonna say right now, we trespassed and stuff. We were stupid kids. But I love it. I do. I miss doing it, honestly. What you can find out in the woods sometimes, like, even here's a place that's not trespassing, that because it's my aunt's property, so I'm allowed out there. And we go hiking in the woods, and just in the middle of nowhere, there's just this little phone booth-sized building with all the wires coming to it, but none of it's active anymore. It just has surrounded by light poles with wires coming off of it. And it's full of, like, fuse boxes and switches and stuff. And it's the old power station back when they lived off when basically that was a grid by itself, and they had their own little independent power station that they had control over. It's really kind of neat to go way out there in the woods and find something like that. But sometimes we would find mansions, old mansions that people built, back in the late 19th century, early 20th century, that just sat and got dilapidated. Old cabins, old foundations, barns. Even in the little town I lived in, because I lived in a Midwest town, like, that was in the 90s when after Reaganomics started killing the economy in the Midwest, there were a lot of abandoned old buildings that we would explore. So this is familiar to me. You'll notice that I watch a lot of the stuff where people are exploring buildings or caves and stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff I'm into. I do like going caving and things like that. Matter of fact, up until last night, I was going to do a caving episode. The reason I didn't was because I contrasted it to last week, where I talked about the giant bats, and there was some bat stuff in there. And I'm like, I'm not going to double up on bats now. So let's go on with melon heads.
The air was thick with decay and the smell of something long forgotten. Their flashlights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Suddenly, they heard a low growl, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps.
We should leave,
Jake urged, but it was too late. The door slammed shut behind them, plunging them into darkness. The whispers grew louder, surrounding them. In the faint beam of his flashlight, Mike saw a pair of glowing eyes staring back at him. "Run!" he shouted, but as they turned to flee, a figure stepped out of the shadows. Its large, misshapen head illuminated by the flickering light.
Look, I know maybe some of the other pages that you might visit are a lot of debate stuff and in the side chat, whatnot. But at least during Cryptic Corner, we're gonna focus on cryptids, and this time, right now, we're gonna talk about urban exploration. But you gotta see what I'm talking about right here with the Jason Voorhees look, right? Y'all see what I'm talking about? say I don't like to just be, oh, I'm kicking you if you're gonna, be a believer or whatever. This isn't that kind of space. I love having believers here, so I don't want just. It's easy to not be toxic. I mean, it's easy to not be toxic. That's what I'm saying. Let's be cool. Let's not be like melon heads, because melon heads are toxic. Wait, you'll find out why.
Melonhead reached out, and the friends felt a chilling sense of dread. The only sound was their own racing heartbeats, along with the haunting whispers of the melonheads surrounding them. Would they escape the clutches of the legend, or had they become part of it?
Yeah, if you want to get into religious stuff, just stick around the show, because the next segment of the show where we're talking about Tucker Carlson and Ray Comfort and stuff, maybe more what you're looking for in content. But I also cryptozoology is my favorite thing, so I generally start here every morning, get my engines going, because I'd say on a list of topics that are my favorite, cryptozoology is probably right under phylogeny, which phylogeny is just the study of real animals, and cryptozoology is the study of undiscovered animals, right? Phylogeny is the ordering. You put phylogeny, ecology, and biology together, that's kind of my bag. Now, I cross it over with folklore and mythology too, to bring you the content that we have here today. So, Cryptic Corner, we talk about an animal or like a cryptid, or sometimes it'll be a ghost or an alien thing. It depends. The folklore takes us all different directions sometimes, but there's always something at the core of it that we want to try to understand and explore. So stick around for that if that's what you're into. And then and then when we get weird with it, we do the same thing, except for it's people making claims instead of some activity or the claim itself. We generally look at people making weird theories, where they make really weird assumptions. That's where we get weird with it. That's where we're going to see Tucker Carlson. And then I wrap it up with Bree's Bestiary, where we find folklore and we kind of parse folklore and fact and fiction, because history, the further back you go, the more blurred the lines between folklore and history get. And we pick an animal and we explore its history and folklore and interaction with man, all that good stuff. So stick around for Bree's Bestiary at the end of the show for that. This is what we do here. Thank you so much.
If you're not from Michigan, Ohio, or Connecticut, you may not have heard of the Melonheads. In the dark corners of American folklore, few tales are as unsettling and pervasive as the legend of the Melonheads. They have huge, bald, bulbous heads, just abnormally big fucking noggins.
So, and this kind of hits close to home to me too, because my Uncle Roger, say uncle, but he was never an adult, because he was a hydrocephalic baby in the 1950s. My dad would describe that they kept him in a hospital, and he said his body was tiny, like a child's, but his head was like really huge, kind of like what you're seeing on the screen here. That it was hard to look at. He didn't live but for maybe I want to say 5 or 6 years, but he wasn't really part of the family because he was kept in the hospital the whole time. And this was a common thing. Hydrocephaly is a serious condition. Like water on the brain. It may look like, oh, it's just a big head, but there's a lot of like the skull's really thin. It's just like the people who elongate their skulls their skulls are really thin, but the skull's really thin. Obviously, there's things going on inside there that just and the folks that have this condition are generally, if they're responsive at all, they're not very interactive, or have trouble with tracking interactions. It's kind of sad.
A couple of articles I saw described them as mischievous with razor-sharp teeth, thin, spindly arms and legs with abnormally pale skin. A lot of the sightings occur while people are driving. Their headlights will catch a small glimpse of hairless heads sticking out of the woods in Ohio, Michigan, and Connecticut.
Is that what you see out in the woods there, Dave, when you're out in your garden and you look out over the hillside? You see little melon heads running around on the hillside being chased by grassmen. Do the grassmen and the melon heads coexist? And how do they relate to the frog, to the Loveland frog people? Ohio's weird. Why are y'all so weird?
Each state has its own version of the story, yet all share a common thread. The melon heads are the remnants of twisted experiments and tragic fates. In terms of aggression, most sources say they are incredibly aggressive. Others claim they are rather docile due to inflammation and mental illness from their swelling heads.
Which is more tracks with what people with hydrocephaly would, hydrocephaly? I don't know if I'm saying that right. Hydrocephaly. But that's really, they're generally more docile people. They can have bouts, though.
The Ohio melon heads are probably the most...
John, don't you run over any melon heads. There's no melon heads in Texas, though. The other John, Eyes on the Road, definitely. Because Texas has its own cryptids. You'll have like a sheep squatch, a goat man. Of course, you got your chupacabra. We got that grizzly, Texas grizzly bear we're going to talk about later, too.
Most well known, with a sinister doctor who allegedly conducted grotesque experiments on children in a hidden asylum. According to the lore, these children developed swollen craniums in a feral nature. Eventually, they escaped into the surrounding forest, where they now lurk, emerging occasionally to terrorize those who get too close to their domain. In Michigan, the melon heads...
So most people with that condition, though, do have trouble holding their heads up altogether. Especially... I mean, I couldn't imagine someone like with that condition trying to survive in the wild, or surviving in the wild, or even being, in a more natural environment, like in nature, with somebody else taking care of them. I can't see the survival rate being really high for someone with that condition, because, and that's not to say that they can never hold their heads up, but if they do, if they're managed to, it's in a very limited capacity and for very short amount of time.
are said to have been the result of an orphanage fire, where children fled into the woods to escape the flames. Over time, they are believed to have mutated due to exposure to toxic chemicals from a nearby industrial site. These melon heads are known for their freaky, high-pitched cries that echo through the trees, making many a man have a need for clean drawers. Connecticut's version of the melon head legend...
Yeah, Dave, and that's what my dad called them, too. Actually, he called his brother that. He called him a waterhead baby. He said he was born a waterhead baby is why he couldn't leave the hospital. When I was a kid, I didn't know what that meant. Now I know, but that's just what they called it for him in the early 1960s to help him understand. I guess that was the common name for it. But much like some of the other names for other conditions that have been used in the past, I don't think waterhead baby is like appropriate now. I think it's would be kind of like using like the R slur for someone with a learning disability, but I don't know for sure. They're not people that really that there's a large population of, or that would probably be able to articulate any kind of offense in the first place. That's why I'm not using that term. But my dad did say that he did call his brother by that term. I'm not sure about its application though, so I don't want to. I don't want to be up here making slurs about anybody with a medical condition. It's just is the main thing.
Enters around the towns of Shelton and Trumbull. Here, the story takes a darker turn with accounts of a deranged family known as the Melonheads. This family, driven to madness by isolation and inbreeding, developed the characteristic enlarged heads and a taste for vengeance. Some versions of the tale suggest that they prey on unwary travelers, seeking to avenge their tormented existence. Despite
And that crackliness, that's on the video. I don't know if it's supposed to sound like he's peeking or if it's supposed to sound like he's sitting by like a campfire. Maybe it doesn't sound like either. It just sounds like just a crack. He's got like a crackly mic. But I just wanted to let y'all know that's not something I can fix or adjust out.
At the regional differences, the core of the Melonhead legend remains consistent. These beings are the tragic products of human cruelty and misfortune. Their presence is a grim reminder of the horrors that can sprout from bullshit science, environmental neglect, and isolation. There are many folks that attribute missing person reports and mutilated animal parts to the Melonheads. As you delve into the eerie...
And as I was saying and thinking about the struggle that someone with this condition would have surviving in the wild at all, them being able to overpower a hiker or something in the forest. Yeah, it doesn't seem like a thing that's gonna happen. I mean, maybe they got really jacked, like they had to survive, so that they were only skinny like that because they had to I went to elementary school with a kid with an abnormally large cranium, but I don't think he had hydrocephaly. He just had a big old dome. Yeah, I mean, there's people that do. I went to Princess Anne High School, and they had a West Wing full of these big-headed fellas. Yeah. Sounds like a campfire story to me. Yeah, I think so too, Maya. By the way, did you all see Maya's last night? It was off the hook. We had Dr. Kip in there dropping like all these facts about oh my gosh, it was so much fun. We were learning. I was learning all about dynastic Judea and stuff like that. I learned a lot last night about the history of that region, which I'm always eager to learn about because I love mythology. We talked about Asherah and El and Yahweh. It was really fun. Thank you for having me on, Maya. I always feel I get imposter syndrome when you pull me on a panel like that. I know I hold my own with my ecology and cryptozoology, but yeah, it's just so cool that you would put me on a panel with Dan and Kip and Dino and Tap. Oh my gosh, those are such cool people to hang out with. I don't know Riverboat Jack though. I'm gonna say that right now, so you'll have to fill me in on who that is. Do I know Riverboat Jack? I don't think I do. But cool that you were on there. Yeah, Jay was talking about the Linsky experiment. Oh my gosh. And we were talking about evolution and some of the cool, more visual displays they have for it and stuff. But yeah, go check that out after this show. Don't go there now because I'm trying to do Live from the Hive about Melonheads.
World of the Melonheads. Remember that legends are born from a kernel of truth. Whether you believe in these tales or just dismiss them as mere folklore, the haunting presence of the Melonheads will linger in your mind, making you think twice before venturing into the shadows where they're said to live. Stories about deformed country people who keep to themselves go back to 1800s Europe.
Now, when I go bald, I have a tiny head, Sumami. My head's like a little bitty head. Not like Andrew Tate small, where it's like freakishly small, but small. And it looks smaller with no hair on it.
For example, a large family of melon heads supposedly once lived in Bavaria, Germany in the mid-19th century. Moreover,
oh my gosh, I wish I could tell you guys what happened in the after show last night on Maya's, but I can't. But it was like so cool. You will have to wait, but it was awesome. It's something I've never got to do in my life, and it's like a big thing. Yeah, it's gonna be so cool. And then once it comes out, I'll be like, this is what I was talking about. But Maya knows what I'm talking about, though.
inbred family of melon heads, known as Weebleheads, were said to live outside Risbury, England, around 1900.
Yeah, Weebleheads.
The Melonhead stories of Ohio are primarily located in the Cleveland suburb of Kirtland. According to local lore, the federal government commissioned Dr.
All right,
Crow
is it map
shortly
time?
after World War II.
It's map time, I think. Let's just do it, because we need to... He mentioned Kirkland, so we can go to Kirkland. Are we in Kirkland here? Yeah. Okay, so this is Kirkland. Alright, and this is the road. Wisner Road. Right? Now it runs a good distance through forested regions. If we drop down on here... We can't even drop down on that part of it at all. Is that Wisner Road? Yeah, here we go. We have to drop down on it way up here. It's pretty thickly forested on both sides, right? So, the theory that some people had, at least, about some of the sightings was that people were seeing an albino moose through the thickets, or maybe even a baby albino moose through the thickets, and wasn't sure what they were looking at. But as you can see, this is a pretty dense forest area, and would be difficult to navigate with a normal size head, yet alone trying to make it up and down and among these pines. And look at these, the power lines running right down through here to make it through this forest with a giant melon head. So if the melon heads are real, more power to you, Mr. Melonhead, because that's some hella navigational skills.
To treat children who suffered from a rare condition known as hydrocephalus, which causes large pockets of water within the brain. Crow ran a small institution of sorts for these children and donated not only his services, but also his home in the woods for the venture. The government sent him these children purportedly in the middle of the night. His thinking was that he was doing a good deed and a great favor to society. According to one version of the legend, Crow had devoted his life to helping the children, who were ostracized from the community due to the size of their heads. People are just assholes, aren't they?
I think the idea with the moose is that the head and the snout of a moose and the swollen human head poking out of the bushes looks similar. I think that's the claim. Why it's they go with moose. If you see a white head sticking up out of the bushes, maybe it's a moose snoot instead. Because a lot of the good morning, Logan. I guess a lot of the explanations are flimsy, but a lot of the sightings are just of the head sticking out, I suppose, is where that comes from.
Crow took mercy on these poor children and allowed them to live with him in the woods, shielding them from the cruelty of the outside world, where he studied them and searched for a cure. Unfortunately, Dr. Crow died of natural causes without finding a cure. Unsure of what to do next, the children simply decided to hang around the old buildings. While the house is now nothing more than ruins, legend has it that if you can find your way back there, you might encounter a melon head or two. But don't fret, if you do spot one, chances are they'll just stand there and stare blankly back at you.
That's
Creepy.
That's probably right. It's not creepy if they have. So I mean I get it. When I started working in medicine, it was to work with developmentally disabled folks, and the stigma around so many of these conditions and behaviors makes me so sad. Now there's not always a person living behind those eyes. There isn't. And unfortunately, there's a blank slate behind there too. But sometimes there is a person behind there. And you have to think about that. And you don't know. So you'll never know if there's a person behind those eyes. Keep that in mind when you're dealing with somebody with a condition like this or anything, whether they have cerebral palsy, which a lot of the folks that I was dealing with did have cerebral palsy. When you have cerebral palsy, your brain is basically sharp and up to date as everybody else's, and it's a physical issue. So, I mean, they're grown adults stuck in these broken bodies, and have some compassion. They're not creepy. Okay, rant over.
Oddly held version of the legend paints a more sinister picture of the doctor. Crow is said to have performed macabre medical experiments on the children, who developed larger, hairless, bulbous heads and tiny, malformed bodies. Crow is rumored to have injected even more fluid into their swollen brains, causing their heads to swell up like melons. Years passed, and Dr. Crow's insanity raged. The escalating evil spilled out from doctor to patient. The children, those who survived, went mad. The Melonheads set fire to the doctor's house and laboratory, destroying any and all records of the non-sanctioned experiments and deplorable abuse.
See, in that version of the story that I had heard before when I was younger was that these weren't hydrocephalic children, that they were orphans, that he adopted as a sign of goodwill, but he actually did secret experiments on them that made them into the melon heads.
They were free, but where could they go? The only home they had ever known was gone, as was the only adult they had ever dealt with.
Happy lurking, Kentucky atheist. Thank you for coming in and watching with me. Apocalypse Meow. Hello. Have y'all seen Josh Blue? He's a comedian who has... Yeah, I know Josh Blue. He was in the Last Comic Standing. Yep, I remember him.
The Melonheads took to the woods, hiding together, scared, angry, seeking shelter and food wherever they could find it. They had no ability or desire to communicate with the outside world. You're not missing much. As the years passed, the Melonhead population grew. The ones who survived reproduced, creating more deformed offspring. The insanity was passed along with the physical characteristics.
Just them making it to adulthood just seems improbable, yet alone them making it to adulthood and reproducing, and then the kids having the same condition. Because I don't think hydrocephaly is genetic or inherited. I haven't ever heard that before. It's situational. Is what I've always understood. So, but these are mad science experiments, not actual people with that condition. There's no real kids with hydrocephaly or whatever. I keep saying it wrong. Running around in the woods in Ohio. It's
said these melonheads hate all human beings and occasionally emerge from hiding places to attack folks in the area. They've been blamed for numerous attacks and some kidnappings. Some accounts say they stole livestock, pets, and even children, using them as a food source. Cannibalism was not out of the question in desperate times. There is yet another version that Dr. Crow was married to a kindly woman who was loved by the children.
It can be genetic. Okay.
One night, Crow and his wife were arguing, and Mrs. Crow was killed, either intentionally or by accident, when she fell against the cabinet and hit her head. The children became enraged and blamed the doctor.
Ben, good morning. So the so many different versions of this story, and really there's like the buildings and stuff there's nothing there. We just looked at it's heavy forests.
Viciously killing him and burning down the institute. The main Melonhead location is a section of Wisner Road where the remains of Dr. Crow's facility are said to be back in the woods. Accounts of Melonhead sightings have been reported mostly at night. They're described as small.
God, he changed that crackling sound out for an owl hooting, and I can deal with the owl hooting a lot better than the crackling.
Humanoid creatures with extremely large, misshapen heads. They're in
Ohio eating the cats and eating the dogs. That's true. The Melonheads were who Trump was talking about. Maybe they got mixed up. Maybe they got Haitians and hydrocephalic mixed up as words. There you go.
Hairless with deformed limbs, razor-like teeth, and glowing red eyes.
All right.
Michigan is filled with urban legends and
now we're on to the Michigan Melonheads.
Folklore. One of the most popular legends is that of the Melonheads. The Melonheads of Michigan are said to reside around Felt Mansion, although they have also been reportedly seen in southern forested areas of Ottawa County.
All right, so we do have Felt Mansion on the map, so let me get that pulled over here for us. And we'll also see the proximity from the previous location. All right, so this is the Wisner Road in Kirkland, Ohio. The other Melonheads from Michigan. The Michigan Melonheads come from here. And this is Felt Estate. And you can actually go down here and stand outside and look. There's the estate. Now, there's forest around here. We can kind of roll out and look at now and see what we're dealing with as far as the property and everything. Look at all that woodland. Maybe there's Camp Melonhead in this section of the forest right here. Gives you an idea though of the landscape around and what people are moving through when they're claiming to see Melonheads clamoring around.
According to one story, they were originally children with hydrocephalus who lived at the Junction Insane Asylum near Felt Mansion. As the story goes, after enduring physical and emotional abuse, they became feral and were released into the forests surrounding the asylum.
Yeah, that's what you do when your patients in a medical facility become unruly. You just like, oh, I'm gonna release you out into the wild.
The legend say that the children once lived in the mansion itself, but later retreated to caves in a nearby hill left over from an abandoned zoo. Some versions of this legend say that the children devised a plan to escape and kill the doctor that abused them. It's said that the children had no place to
Almost the same story, right?
hide the body, so they cut it up in small pieces, which they hid around the mansion, like a twisted scavenger hunt. Rumors exist that teenagers who had broken into the mansion saw ghosts of the children and claimed to see shadows of the doctor's murder through the light coming from an open door. The legend has spread throughout the region.
There's the light coming through an open door that they were standing in and seeing their own shadows? Maybe? Yeah, I do see there's a lot of Gollum-ness to this.
Even becoming the subject of a 2011 film titled The Melon Heads. The horror film, based on the urban legend, had the tagline, "Every town has its own monster story. Allegan, Michigan's is the Melon Head." Located in Holland, the Felt Mansion was built in 1928 by Dor Felt as a summer home for his wife. The Felt Mansion became the St. Augustine Cemetery for Boys in 1949. The mansion was a school and a chapel until it was purchased by the state of Michigan in 1977. The state used the mansion as a state police post and later converted the building into a prison. The state sold the estate to Laketown Township in 1995 for $1, as long as they preserved it. The property is listed in the National Register of Historic Places. The Melonheads legend claims that the mansion was an insane asylum which housed the creatures. Visitors
And it never was an insane asylum as far as the history goes. You can look back at the history of Felt Mansion and it's never been used as an insane asylum.
and late-night explorers have reported seeing curtains moving in the windows of the vacant old building, with strange noises and shadows darting through the darkness. The government insists that it was part of the Dunes Correctional Facility, a low-security prison that was shut down. Some locals, however, believe that it was once the site of the Junction Insane Asylum. The Allegan County Historical Society has alleged that the asylum never existed and is just part of local lore.
Folklore.
But maybe it did exist, and maybe it had something to do with the Melonheads. Stories of their origin.
Whenever somebody says something like that, it reminds me of that scene in Wayne's World where Tia Carrere says, and maybe if a frog had wings, it wouldn't bump its ass when it jumped. Right? It's like, maybe it did exist. Yeah, maybe, but no, it didn't. Records say it didn't. We have like records of hospitals and stuff going back to the colonies, basically. So it's weird just to think that, oh, there would be one, and then they erased it from existence.
Differ, but one thing's for sure, they've scared the shit out of a lot of people.
Yeah.
I can see if you're there by yourself or with one other person and you hear something you're not used to hearing, your imagination will start to run away with you, said Scott Kuykendall of the Allegan County Historical Society. Or it could be a melonhead. The vast network of trails in Laketown Township surrounding the Felt Mansion and Saugatuck Dunes State Park are said to be haunted by this mysterious band of creatures.
All right, hold on. Let's go back to the map real quick and look. They said trails around it, which I'm kind of interested in seeing. So is it talking about, are there trails through the forest maybe? I wish I could see more. The location's good for isolation, so I get why they were using it for a prison. I'm glad you're enjoying this one, Captive Desk Dave. I enjoy doing these, I guess we can call them urban legend style cryptids too, every now and then, where there's more word-of-mouth folklore than anything else.
Every New England town can claim a ghost, and many have a witch in their past. But the Melonheads belong to only a handful of places. And
I'm going to go refresh my coffee and let this play while I'm gone. Hopefully I don't miss anything cool. Oh, hold on. I got to give a shout out to Apocalypse Meow, because they gave me a $4.99 super chat. Maybe if a frog had wings, it wouldn't bump its ass when it hopped. Yes. Absolutely. Gorgeous. Okay, I'm going to play this. I'm going to go just topping off my coffee. I should be back in just a minute.
southwestern Connecticut. Melonhead stories surfaced in Connecticut after World War II, a time when people moved away from cities into the suburbs. But how did the Melonheads end up in Connecticut? Several variations of the Melonhead legend can be found. According to one variation, Fairfield County was the location of an asylum for the criminally insane that burned down in the fall of 1960, resulting in the death of all the staff and most of the patients, with 10 to 20 inmates unaccounted for. Some of the patients escaped the fire and settled in the surrounding woods. They hunted small animals for food, and when the winter set in and hunting became too hard, they resorted to slaying and consuming.
I'm back, and I have a question for you guys. Still got the poll going on, but I could probably end that poll because we're not really. We kind of have an idea, but my question, and I'll put it in poll format, or is, do you know about Bunny Man Bridge? Because if you don't, we might have to cover that in the future. Let me see. Some of this reminded me of that.
The group continued to live in isolation in the woods, where inbreeding within the small group caused the next generation to develop deformities. On the rare occasion that outsiders came into contact with them, they called them Melonheads based upon their appearance. The legend states that the Melonheads' appearance is the result of them having resorted to cannibalism in order to survive the harsh winters of the region and to inbreed.
And this is common folklore in Appalachia too, so you got to keep that in mind, that a lot of these folks that moved up into the mountains came from this region where this folklore was already prominent, right? And some, like as I mentioned before, there were the Weebleheads from the UK. So this folklore is brought over from Europe and explaining, I guess, probably hydrocephalic people at a almshouse or something. An almshouse is what they had before hospitals. Bedlam used to be an almshouse. But the 92% of you all don't know Bunny Man Bridge. Oh my gosh. I am going to have to put together something on that, because that is an excellent example when it comes to parsing folklore and fake lore. Yes. But they would bring the folklore about that over, and then when the mountain people would have interactions with, I don't know what to call them besides the feral mountain folk of the Appalachia chain, which we covered in the Dennis Martin section. But apparently, yeah, there are still mountain men that live out in the far corners living off the land in, I guess, state parks now. But like not a lot of them, like not like a secret community of them or anything, but just, you know, vagrant mountain men living off the land, like our ancestors used to, I guess. And when they would encounter them and mix it with this folklore, because those people were also often accused of cannibalism and stuff. They were fingers were always pointed at the vagrant, hermit that lives out in the woods.
Which in turn caused them to develop hydrocephalus. According to a second variation, the Melonheads are descendants of a colonial-era family from Shelton Trumbull, who were banished after accusations of witchcraft were made against them, causing them to retreat to the woods. As with the first version of this legend, this variation attributes the appearance of the Melonheads to inbreeding. Melonheads allegedly prey upon humans who wander into their territory. A number of Connecticut-based legends of the Melonheads have one characteristic in common: the inclusion of a secluded, rustic, single-lane dirt road running through the Melonheads' wooded territory. Many towns in the area have rural and forested sections, and it's not uncommon for these forests to have dirt roads running through them. These roads, at times, are associated with the local variation of the Melonhead legend and are said to be...
Charlie Kirk is a Melonhead? I mean, yeah, I've seen some evidence for that.
...part of the Melonhead's territory. In a number of towns, several legends place the Melonhead's territory around a mysterious street known as Dracula Drive. None of the towns that have a Melonhead legend have roads designated as Dracula Drive. Depending on what version of the legend is told, one of several existing streets are mistakenly referred to or coincide with the Dracula Drive mentioned in the Melonhead stories.
And we are going to, we're going to look at that too. So now we got to move on from Michigan back past, here's Kirkland again, but we're going to the East Coast, and we are going to Southwest Connecticut. We got Newton Township here. And then we have Trumbull down here. Now, the reason I have both these places marked is because both of them are associated with this Melonhead phenomena. They're not that far away from each other, but they're far enough away that it'd be weird if it was like not the same phenomena being recited with a different location. Now, up here, this is an old hospital, right? And this hospital, Fairfield Hill Hospital, used to be Fairfield State Hospital, which was a psychiatric hospital before they started doing, doing deinstitutionalization, and that was like in the 60s and 70s. Because before deinstitutionalization, people like me were locked up. Just locked up inside a facility instead of medicated and able to live lives. But if you go down, you can get like a good look at the buildings and stuff. Let me see. Where's the one I wanted to look at? It's the one with the tower on it. I think it's that one right there. Yeah, there you go. So this is the building that is mostly associated with Melonhead folklore in Newton, right? This building right here. That's as close as I can get to it. But that's the one that's associated with the Melonheads. Now, this hospital closed in 95, and some of the buildings were bought out by different companies. This one was bought out by a brewery. But the thing is that there's secret tunnels all underneath this property connecting all these buildings, like underground tunnels, for moving patients between spaces and moving the patient's food between spaces too. through all these buildings throughout here. They had tunnels connecting them. Isn't that wild? And some of the tunnels have been sealed up. All the tunnels have been sealed up because of freaking urban explorers. Which, yeah, I would be tempted to go down there and look too. But the ones that any of these buildings, when they get renovated, they fill those tunnel sections in when they're doing their construction. But that is not. There's really no other reason why this is associated with melon heads other than that. But if you got to kind of couple that with, where is it? Where's the prison? There it is. With this, because they combine these two, the Garner Correctional Institute. You can't get down here by this at all. You can't see this building. It's a prison, so they keep it pretty like they don't want you to be able to look for chinks in the armor from the outside or anything. This is a correctional facility, right? And this is the facility that they keep a lot of their mental health patients, I believe, who are in the system. This is where they keep them in Connecticut. Now, this down here, though, is actually what they refer to when they talk about Dracula Road, and that's Velvet Street. And as I drop down in here, you'll kind of see why. I guess the spooky reputation. I mean, look at that. Could you imagine trying to run through that boulder field with a giant melon head? We've got snares on the side of the road to catch their prey. Obviously, that's how these are melon head hunting grounds. But it's like a lonely little, one lane. Oh, look, there's ferns on the side of the road that look gorgeous. But yeah, I couldn't imagine trying to run through those woods with a giant melon head. That would be rough. Alright, back to the video. We got about 8 minutes left. Yeah. We'll speed it up.
While doing research for this, nearly every article included some first-hand witness accounts, meaning several folks came across these little fuckers. So I read through them and picked out some pretty good ones. The first one starts out, "My name is Tony, and I recently had an experience with the Melonheads. It was on October 5th, 2001. My stepfather, mom, stepbrother, and I were driving down Chillicothe Road in Chardon looking for Melonheads. We had been driving up and down the roads in the same area for almost an hour with no luck. We were just about to go home when we came up to this stretch of road that had fields on both sides and an irrigation ditch running parallel with each side of the road.
So you all used to go around looking for drive around looking for melon heads in Connecticut and Ohio and Michigan?
Just then, I looked out my window and I saw him, a melonhead. He, or it, was running alongside of us next to the ditch. Since the ditch was too wide to jump over, it was running close, like it was about to jump, and then pulling away. At the time, we were going about 45 to 50 miles per hour. The melonhead was actually keeping up with us. It's the $6 million melonhead. It didn't look anything like I'd heard in the stories. He looked about the same height as me, 5'7", and was wearing brown pants which were very ripped up. And where the seams would be, it was held together by what looked like corn husk. It wore a white shirt with brown and red stains all over it. I'm hoping that the red stains weren't blood. What were the brown stains? Its head was a very light brown tint. It had 2 holes in the sides of its head, which I think were ears. Its head was swelled up, and its eyes were very big looking. Just as we turned a curve, it jumped into the woods. In the next encounter, some kids were driving around one day and...
So, yeah, about the Bunny Man Bridge, 93% of y'all didn't know what it was. 6% did know what it was. So the 6%, are you from the Clifton area? Imagine it can't be more than 1 or 2 people voting that said they knew what it was. Are you from that area? Just kind of interested to know if it's because of local folklore or not.
Saw a melonhead watching them from the side of a country road. They stopped and the melonhead ran into the woods. They followed deep into the woods and came to an old farmhouse. Man, I've seen this movie. On the porch sat a middle-aged couple and several melonheads. The kids asked what was going on, and the old man explained that he had been a nuclear scientist during World War II. After the war, he married, but the exposure to radiation caused all of his children to be born as melonheads. The government gave him a lot of money to keep quiet and bought him this secluded farmhouse where they could live out their lives away from prying eyes. He asked the kids to tell no one what they'd seen and to never return. Someone told this next story at a party in the summer of 1964. Someone else thought they knew where the...
way back into the 60s, y'all. The Lemonhead in human form. Yeah.
Melonheads lived, so we all crammed into cars and headed out to find them. We got stopped by the police in Waite Hill. When they found out where we were going, they gave us a stern lecture that there were no such things and that we should tell all our friends that there were no melonheads. We were taken to the police station where we had to call our parents to come and get us. We all agreed that the police were so intense in trying to convince us that there were no melonheads that there had to be melonheads. If not, why were the police so upset that we were looking for them? The legend of the melon...
If there aren't any monsters in the woods, why are the cops worried about us running around in the woods at night trying to catch them? It's like, come on now.
Melonheads isn't the only one to involve deformed or mutated humans. Connecticut also has the Danbury Frog people and the Faceless people of Monroe. Intriguing.
Yeah,
I may do a video on those later on. Let me know in the comments if I should do a video on the Danbury Frog people and the Faceless people of Monroe.
Yeah, let me know if you want me to do the Danbury Frog people or the Faceless people of Monroe as well. Obviously, the Bunny Man Bridge is one that I now have to add to the list.
The Melonheads are not merely a local legend, but an example of the profound power of storytelling and the human fascination with the macabre and the mysterious. Rooted deeply in history and shrouded in a dark silhouette, the legend beckons both the skeptic and the believer to explore its depths.
So, Cuddly Unicorn, I do want to say that there was a proposed state in the United States called Transylvania. It was going to be, I believe it covered part of West Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Not 100% on that, though. I may be adding a state on there that wasn't on there. But it was somewhere in that forested region, right? And it was going to be called Transylvania. Because, I mean, the name just means beyond the... Sylvanian means forested, like Sylvan elves. Sylvania. Pennsylvania means the forest of Penn, which was the fella who founded Pennsylvania. Transylvania, like transgender, means trans. Forest, across the forest. The land beyond the forest is what Transylvania means. Sounds really spooky, right? But it just means, yeah. When you think of it as like going along the lines of like a sylvan elf, though, and meaning forest, it starts to sound pretty.
It's a story that straddles the fine line between truth and the collective imagination, captivating and terrifying in equal measure. As the legend of the Melonheads continues to unfurl through time, it serves as a chilling reminder of the mysteries that lie hidden in the shadows, whispering from the silent forests. These tales may be a blend of fact and fiction, though nothing is for certain. They do, however, underscore our enduring attraction to the unknown and the lengths to which we go to confront or comprehend it. In the end, the Melonheads embody more than just whispers of the past. They represent a cultural artifact, a piece of the fabric that makes up the local identity, and a mirror reflecting our collective psyche. Whether born from a kernel of truth or the blossom of communal storytelling, the Melonheads continue to intrigue, to inspire, and to haunt. As the legend endures, it challenges us to ponder the mysteries veiled in the heart of the Midwest, waiting in the quiet stillness of the forest, where reality and legend dance in the shadows. If you dig this video, don't forget to tap that like button and subscribe. That way you won't miss out on more of my strangeness. And I really appreciate it. I also got some pretty kick-ass merch, personally designed by me. The link's in the description.
I wish you didn't look like a cross between, what's the guy's name? The cryptozoologist. Where's the hat? It's gonna drive me crazy. Oh, yeah, there you go. Lyle Blackburn. It looks like a cross between Lyle Blackburn and Steve McRae, right? Look at the guy.
I still got some pretty kick-ass merch, personally designed by me. The link's in the description.
All right.
I got Stay Creepy mugs, t-shirts, stickers, and all kinds of badass miscellaneous shit.
And I want you all
Until
to
next
stay
time,
creepy,
y'all
too.
keep it real.
Y'all keep it real. But when it comes to melon heads, I think that's all we're going to do for today, because we've done the full thing. But we might go back down here and look at these maps again. So we have them here. Melon heads here and here. As we move west across the Appalachian with the folks that traveled and settled in this region about 1830s. Here and here, this whole Great Lakes region was really, the 1830s was when it really started to boom. It's actually because in the early 19th century, early to mid 19th century, it was the end of towards the end of what we call the Little Ice Age, but they were starting to experience a lot of crop failures. There was the year without a summer that happened in this time frame too, which that really drove people west to explore, because it didn't impact the Midwest nearly as bad as it did the East Coast, which was a volcanic eruption that caused it, right? But the sky was overcast and plants didn't grow and there was no summer. It snowed in July, all the way down to the Virginias, I believe. It was bad, and it drove people west. So as they traveled west, they brought their folklore about weeble heads and witchcraft and stuff to explain hydrocephaly and hydrocephalic patients west with them. And when they settled these regions, they took that folklore with them. So I think that's really interesting to way to see the navigation of the story and how it spread. Now, each of these locations probably did have their own situation at some point in history with hydrocephalic people, or maybe a care facility for hydrocephalic people. And they don't advertise places like that, like in the like they do necessarily a hospital. Like, to try to make people feel like they're living in a home. So a lot of times these facilities will be like a house, maybe a house off the beaten path, and maybe the kids come outside, or they spend, you take them out in their wheelchairs or whatever and spend some time out in the sun. But I don't know if that makes them cryptids. And I don't. This has been one of the weirder ones for me, because I don't even know if to classify this as a cryptid or like a humanoid. It's really just because it sounds like it really just a misunderstanding of a medical condition, which, it's kind of frustrating in and of itself. Anyway, what do you think about melon heads? Are they real? Are they based on true sightings of feral people with giant heads in the forest somewhere at some point in time, passed down through word of mouth? I don't know. But we will see what you have to say in the comments below. I've been your host, Miss Bumblebee. This has been Cryptic Corner. Please remember to be kind, take care, and we will see you next time. All right, so that ran about an hour or so, a little over an hour for Cryptic Corner, about an hour and 10 minutes actually, which is long, but that's okay because it was melon heads. It's a big topic. The upcoming topic, though, is the one I've been looking forward to, which involves Tucker Carlson. So if you want to see that, stick around. I will be back in just a couple minutes with the rest of the show. Again, this is just the first section of the show. This is just Cryptic Corner coming to an end. Live from the Hive still has at least a minimum of another hour left. Maybe an hour and a half. Regardless, I will be back in just a moment with some Tucker Carlson and Ray Comfort shenanigans. So don't go anywhere. Stick around, and I will see you momentarily. right, hello, and welcome to another installment of Getting Weird With It. And today, who's getting weird with it? Well, the one and only Tucker Carlson. If you don't know who Tucker Carlson is, I'll probably put that evolution thing at the beginning of this when I publish it too. But regardless, if you don't know who Tucker Carlson is, the most important impact Tucker Carlson had in society involved the both the 2016 and the 2020 elections. He was instrumental in helping MAGA break onto the mainstream, normalizing MAGA as part of American culture. So Tucker Carlson has done some icky reporting before and has bad takes. He's very credulous of things like evolution and anthropogenic climate change. But you'd think someone who was working through, for a news organization, regardless of what their own personal, whatever they got going on, thoughts are on supernatural things, that they keep it for themselves. And maybe Tucker did for years because he was a Fox News anchor, right? He was working for Fox. He had to walk the path. He's not working for Fox anymore, though. He's a freelance guy. He's a I think he's contracted with X, but not exclusively to where he's not doing stuff for other broadcasters. And here's an interview that he did about being attacked by demons. All right, let's see. Do I got the volume up? Okay. Let me know if you can.
You think the presence of evil is kickstarting people to wonder about the good?
That's what happened to me.
That's what happened to you?
Oh yeah, I had a direct experience with it.
In the milieu of journalism or just?
Nope, in my bed at night, and I got attacked while I was asleep with my wife and 4 dogs in the bed and mauled. Physically mauled.
He had 4 dogs in the bed? I mean, I'm not throwing shade. I've slept with 4 dogs in the bed, or no, I never slept with 4 dogs. I slept in the bed with 3 dogs and a cat, though. And 3 dogs and 2 cats. It was a bigger bed, though, than what I have now.
In a spiritual attack by a demon?
Yeah, by a demon. Or by something unseen that left.
Is that right?
Claw marks on my sides, on my...
So it left physical marks?
Oh, they're still there. Yeah.
Could it have been one of the 4 dogs in the bed with you that left claw marks? Who knows? No, dogs don't have claws.
A year and a half ago.
Was your wife terrified? I know you were.
I wasn't. I was totally confused. I woke up and I couldn't breathe, and I thought I was going to suffocate, and I walked around outside, and then I walked in, and my wife and dogs had not woken up, and they're very light sleepers. And then I had these terrible pains on my rib cage and on my shoulder, and I was just in my boxer shorts, and I went and flipped on the light in the bathroom, and I had 4 claw marks on either side underneath my arms and on my left shoulder, and they're bleeding.
Wait, they were bleeding?
They're bleeding, yeah. No, they're actual claw marks. And I sleep on my side, so I wasn't clawing myself. I don't have long...
If you sleep with 4 dogs and a wife, do any of them have claws? There's 5 other individuals in the bed with you who could have scratched you. Out of all 5 of those other individuals in the bed, you want to say, no, it was an invisible sixth party that arrived in the bed that scratched me, and nobody else was aware of its presence but me. Or I wasn't even aware of its presence until it scratched me. Is this for real?
Nails. And they didn't fit my hands anyway. But yeah, that happened. So I'm not from a world where things like that happen. I never heard of anything like that happening before. I had no idea what that was. I knew it was spiritual immediately.
You did? Okay, that was going to be my question.
He knew it was spiritual immediately. He totally dismissed the 5 other individuals in the bed. The 5 other individuals that he's sharing a bed space with. Even if it's a California king, there's still 5 individuals in that bed with him. But it couldn't have been any of those 5 individuals. It had to be a mysterious 6th party who is unseen by anybody else in the bed, and scratched just him, woke just him up, and yeah, of course that's how it's got to be, right?
I don't understand to this day. I'm not going to put it.
You didn't try to refute the spiritual part in your own mind. You went right into the.
Well, it didn't make any sense, and it doesn't now. But I'm not from a, what do they call it, faith.
How does it not make any sense? You have animals in the bed with you. And I imagine your wife has long fingernails. Just a speculation, but I bet she does. So.
Tradition that talks about things like that or even acknowledges their existence. Like, there's nothing like that. I've never heard anybody say anything like that in my whole life.
What was the next day like?
Well, the next morning I woke up and I thought that was the weirdest dream I've ever had. And then I saw blood on my sheets and I realized that was not a dream at all. I called my assistant. It was like the only evangelical Christian I know, well enough to call with something bizarre like that, totally bizarre like that. And she said, oh yeah, no, that happens. Yeah, people are attacked in their bed by demons. What? What are you even talking about? Yeah.
Well, if you were attacked though, now they say that animals can sense demons, right? So you have like all these dogs with you, and none of them said, hey, there's a demon in here, Dad. We need to not be asleep, and you need to be up and aware of it. Sounds exactly like sleep paralysis when he says trying to catch his breath. Yeah. Maybe and that's kind of, maybe he was sleeping and the dog kicked him with his back legs, and in his hypnopompic state he panicked because he couldn't wake up, but he could feel the scratches from the dog, and he felt frozen there. And then finally when he broke free, what you do is you generally, when you break free from sleep paralysis, at least I do, or I did when I had it, was first thing I want to do is get up and go to the bathroom, which is always nerve-wracking because your nerves are on edge, because, and depending on your situation, you might have just had an encounter with something that's not really there, and your brain's telling you it's still in the vicinity, that that it was sitting on my chest, but now it's gone somewhere in the dark corners of the house, and now I have to walk through the dark house to the bathroom.
So, I'm not leaving anything out, and I'm not pretending to understand that. I can only say what happened to me, and that did happen to me, and then I was seized with this very intense desire to read the Bible, which I then started without any study aids or anything. I bought a Bible that didn't have any. I'm not interested in editorializing in the Bible. I just want to read it and see what's in there myself. I have very low levels of trust for Christian pastors, most of whom,
you don't have to trust a Christian pastor, but you should trust a Bible scholar, right? You can trust. You don't want to try to interpret the Bible yourself, because you end up with, hopefully a modern interpretation. Now, if you're going to interpret yourself, you better be going back to the Greek and translating it yourself, because otherwise it's always editorialized for you. There's no Bible out there that's not editorialized for your modern Western understanding. There's just not. And the King James Bible is a good example of how jacked up a Bible can get when you editorialize it. And I would bet dollars to donuts that Tucker Carlson uses the King James Bible. His credulity seems like that he would think that was the true Bible, which is so weird because it was a reinterpreted Bible by King James the First's administration to try to change around some. Yeah. Anyway, it's wild to think that that'd be the accurate and the most accurate version of the Bible around.
Just not a fan at all, and sorry to say that, but that's how I feel. And so I don't want to hear other people's opinions. I just want to see what's in there. And not opinions, but you do need to understand that these people are speaking a different language from a different time,
and it takes professionals who understand what the words in that language mean and to interpret the verses into a language and into a way that you can understand it, right? So trust those people to give you a proper interpretation of the Bible. If you try to do a cold reading of the Bible, sometimes you can run into some trouble if you're not willing to understand the context as presented by professionals in the field.
Spent a year and a half reading it, and then I started rereading it, and it was just a transformative experience for me. But I'm not, holding myself out as someone from whom you could get theological advice, because I'm not.
Of course.
I don't know. I don't understand any of it. But yeah, that happened.
God
to me.
allowed the demon?
I have no idea what happened. All I know is I was dead asleep with my wife and dogs, and I woke up with claw marks on my rib cage underneath my arms, and it didn't even make sense. My arms would, anyway, whatever. No one has to believe me. I don't care.
It doesn't matter.
But that happened to me, and so I just was like, wow, that's real. Whatever that is, I'm not sure what it is.
It's
but
very real. And so then that presence...
Did you have your Trump Bible with you? I don't even know if this would happen if you... I see a mention from Spooky here. I wonder if Tucker had his Trump Bible. Because if he didn't, then he's just asking for it. He's just asking for a demonic infestation.
That evil launches something.
Yeah. So, that was Tucker's demonic experience, but he's not the only one having demonic experience this spooky season. We have Ray Comfort is also experiencing the demonic.
Satanic rituals, naked often.
Ray, you and I typically get together and we get to talk about the amazing evangelistic work that you do. And over the years, that's how I've gotten to know you, is getting to work with you in that regard. But there's another subject that's part of our faith that I think sometimes is either overlooked or overemphasized, depending on who you're dealing with. But I've had a focus of feeling like this issue of
if there was anybody who had more dead face incredulity than Tucker Carlson, it's this guy.
Well, the spiritual evil is sometimes ignored. As an evangelist, why is it important that we have a healthy understanding of what this spiritual evil actually consists of?
Well, I like that word healthy, because you're right, there is excess and abuse when it comes to the whole thought of exorcism and demons. But the Bible is full of it, especially the Gospels. Jesus was casting out demons all over the place, speaking to them, asking for the name of Legion. Paul in Ephesians says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, against spiritual wickedness in high places. He said we wanted to do this, preach the gospel to the Thessalonians. He said,
now Jesus put demons into pigs. So is that like a real thing? Like animals can be possessed too, Ray?
Satan hindered us. And so, and also Jesus said, these signs will follow them that believe. In my name, they will cast out demons. So this isn't something that's unbiblical. It's something that's fantastic in the truest sense of the word. It just seems like fantasy. It doesn't seem real, but we know it's real, both from scripture and from experience.
Well, and it's also interesting because culture, and I find this fascinating, is absolutely obsessed with these issues, right? I mean, Hollywood churns out, and they're not doing it from a biblical perspective.
Oh, yeah. We didn't ask for the Ray Comfort. I'm not very comfortable at all with him.
99.9% of the time, but movie after movie about, ghosts, and I'll put that in quotes, ghosts and demons. And this is a topic, I think, because people, A, they're curious about it, but B, people have experienced things that they can't explain. And so it's sort of fed this intrigue, even in the secular world.
I didn't even know Ray Comfort had been bitten by a werewolf until now. I mean, I guess they could schedule around the full moons to avoid this, but...
But I want to ask, because one of your many books, your book Out of the Comfort Zone, you and I had talked offline, and you said, hey, I want you to check out, chapter 10 in this book. And, I went back to the book and read chapter 10, and really it recounts some of your experiences early on in ministry where you were dealing with spiritual evil. And I love the way you wrote it. I thought it was incredible, sort of journeying through your lens, what you experienced. But one of the stories was about this man named John, and you were at a youth church camp. You were speaking there, and he came to you. Tell us a little bit about what he had to say and what you experienced with him.
Yeah, this happened 40 years ago. It was like the last century. And I had to read the book too to remember exactly what happened, because I want to get it right. And I'd like to say there's no exaggerations on my part. I believe all liars will have their part in the lake of fire. Liars won't inherit the kingdom of God. And so I'm very careful.
Have you ever told a lie? Then you're a liar. All liars go to hell. So you're going to go to hell, Ray.
Careful to not to exaggerate and to speak the truth. But I was at a youth camp. This is just a couple of these incidents in the book of a number that happened to me. But I was at a youth camp, and a young guy named John came to my cabin, and he said, "I've got some problems. Can I talk with you?" And so he sat on the bunk, and we began to talk. And I think I said, I'll pray for you in a minute. And as I began to,
I know he had to read his own book, saying, I know, right? It's like, oh, you have to go back and reread what you wrote because it wasn't an actual experience you had in your life. It was a fake story that you were telling for your book. Is that why?
He slumped onto the floor on his back and back arched on his back and began sliding across the room and screaming and groaning and having a spirit of perception. I perceived this was not normal human behavior. So I began to pray, exercising prayer, and demons began to manifest. And afterwards, some guy come to the room, and he said, because he heard the noise, and I said, go and get a drink of water for John. And he came back to himself because he was in a blackout state. And I said, John, what have you been into to get like this?
Sounds like old boy was maybe having a seizure or something, and you probably should have took him to get checked out, get some scans done, some labs done, see what's going on.
And he said he had been listening to heavy occultic rock music and drinking blood, which isn't normal. And him and his girlfriend, under the influence of marijuana, would go to a butcher and get blood and drink it. And it's because,
I usually don't smoke a lot on camera, just from principle, right? But for you, Ray, I'm going to make an exception because I'm going to see if this makes me crave blood. All right. So, under the influence of marijuana, I'm under the influence of marijuana, and I'm going to see if I crave blood and I need to go to the butcher. I didn't even know marijuana would make you a vampire. I did know that bananas apparently turn you into a werewolf. Or a werelanger, maybe?
Because Satanism and the occult is all founded upon rebellion, a rebellion against God and against everything good and wholesome. And God says blood is sacred, so they drink blood to desecrate it. God loves children, says, let the children come to me. They sacrifice children. God says, cover the human body, so they have their satanic rituals naked often. And so it's all founded on rebellion.
When I was a pagan, Wiccan, I don't see, that's the reason, I hesitate to say that I was a Wiccan. The coven I was associated with was Wiccan, but I was never initiated into the club, or into the coven. I just participated in their solstice rituals, but I wasn't like a member of their coven specifically. So I don't know if I could call myself a practicing Wiccan or not in that sense, but some of the stuff that we did in a way that was called skyclad, which is it means that you're nude or mostly nude during the proceedings.
And that's what he had been into, and that's what had opened the door to demons.
So I have a number of questions here. The first one being, here you are. I'm sure you're thinking you're going to have a normal conversation with this guy, with John, about what he's going through. When he collapsed to the floor and started moving around the room, what was going through your mind and your heart in those moments as you were watching that unfold?
Well, I missed out one.
I've never crawled across the floor on my back while under the influence of marijuana. But maybe I'm just not drinking enough blood with my marijuana.
In detail, saliva from his mouth was coming out with such velocity it was hitting a
there we go.
chest of drawers at least 6 or 8 feet.
That is kind of how kiwi feathers look too. They're like downy floof feathers.
From him, it was just weird. What was going through my mind is, yikes, what is happening? Because I live in a natural world. If you think it sounds fantastic, think of me. I was right in the middle of like a horror movie. But I'd experienced it before in other instances, so I knew what to do, and I knew it was biblical, and so I was able to keep my...
You just said you lived in a natural world up until then. Now you were living in a supernatural world where you've had these experiences before. Make up your mind. Be consistent, Ray. That's not too much to freaking ask.
From getting fried, but it is quite horrific if you look at it naturally without the knowledge that God is with you.
Well, and you know, the thing about this too, that the Hollywood movies, this is sort of where they leave it a lot of times, right? The evil wins, the person is overtaken, and chaos ensues, and yet in this case,
that was a precedent set by the Omen, The Exorcist, and Rosemary's Baby, the possession trifecta of the mid 20th century. All set the into motion that the evil would win at the end. I guess The Exorcist, the evil kind of doesn't win because once it possesses the priest, he throws himself out the window. But it got a priest to commit suicide, which I guess means he doesn't receive the keys to the kingdom of heaven. So I guess that was the if you're Catholic, the overarching kind of finality of it. But Rosemary's Baby and The Omen, I think in both situations the evil wins because you can't. What are you going to do?
Said a prayer, an exercising prayer in this moment. Talk a little bit about that, because I think one thing people don't realize is that there is an ability to heal and beat this through Jesus, right?
Oh, absolutely. Whom the Son sets free is free indeed. I don't believe a Christian can be demonically possessed. He can be oppressed. The Apostle Paul spoke of Satan sending an angel of Satan to buffet him. And so we all have battles with demonic forces, with thoughts entering our head. But
I thought you were supposed to use the word principalities there. But Paul, I think Paul's biggest demons that he was battling with were probably I'm not trying to throw shade or anything. I'm as gay as the day is long, but maybe some Latin homosexuality that Paul was dealing with was his demons. Because we suddenly see when we start getting into the Pauline works, this sudden interest in who lays with who and all this sort of purity culture kind of stuff.
When someone becomes a Christian, they are set free. And I've got to say this so everyone gets it in perspective what we're talking about. All these things happened 40 years ago. I haven't prayed exercising prayer for 40 years. I don't have a deliverance ministry. And that's because in 1982, I had a revelation. And this was a revelation, and we can talk about it later if you wish. But the Bible says, submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. And if Satan isn't fleeing from someone, I believe is probably because they're not totally submitted to God. And this is why often people that have prayed exercising prayer for some time, when I've spoken to them, they've got bitterness in their heart or anger or resentment towards their parents. That's one way to get spiritual problems, is to hate your father, hate your mother. Ephesians 6 verse 1 says, honor your father and mother, that all may be well with you and your days may be long.
What if your father is a convicted serial killer and let's see what's for an evangelical, and your mom was a nurse at an abortion clinic? Do you honor them, Ray? And they both voted for Hillary, and neither one of them go to church. and your mother actually dabbled in Satanism, right? When she was pregnant with you, and she tried to sacrifice you, but the police came and saved you. Do you still honor your mother and father, Ray? Do you honor them? The Bible tells you to.
Long upon the earth. We're commanded to honor our parents. And if you hate your father, that's opening the door to demons. The Apostle Paul spoke of having bitterness in your heart. And then he says, but we're not ignorant of Satan's devices. Bitterness can give a stronghold to the enemy. And so we should not give place to the devil. That's what the Bible says. Give no place to the devil. If the devil has place, we're giving it to him. Remember, Satan goes about as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. That word may is a word of permission. It's not a word, it means permission. If you are in Satan's territory...
It looks really soft. You go up to Ray Comfort and be like, how white people are always like to black people, and they're always like, oh, can I touch your hair? I want to go do that to Ray. Like if Ray comes up to me with his man on the street stick, I'm gonna be like, listen, I'll answer your questions if I can touch your hair, because it looks like owl feathers. It looks like he does kind of look like a baby owl. I don't know how else to describe it. It does look like it'd be really soft though. God is described as a lion also. Yeah. And isn't the devil described as a serpent more often than a lion? A serpent that slips and sneaks through.
If you're lying or stealing or looking at porn or blaspheming and doing things you know
looking at porn,
wrong,
that's just so weird that it looking at porn goes right in with lying and blaspheming. Why? Like, humans are, if we weren't meant to be seen naked, we'd be born with clothes on. Even in your theology, my dude. It's cultural. I'm sorry, everybody. I hate to break it to you, but your shame over your body and your body being seen publicly, or your innate sexualization of certain body parts that they should be covered because you sexualize them, that's cultural and learned behavior. It's not natural. It doesn't come natural to us as a species. You aren't, unlike the Bible claims, you aren't suddenly ashamed of your body at a certain age. People who live in uncontacted communities, who have never been exposed to our Western values and ethics on what should be covered, they can live like nude, right? Like, because they're in tropical places, most of these uncontacted places. Imagine if they were in colder locations, they might cover themselves more. But regardless, like, there's nothing gross or weird about a naked dad holding his naked baby. Yeah, there's nothing weird about that. Or a naked mom telling her naked children a bedtime story. There's nothing gross or weird about that, right? But because of our values in Western society, even the idea of seeing part of someone's nudity is just off the hook disgusting, right? Oh, you can't have cleavage. There you go, spooky, exactly. You got to keep those ankles covered. It's really just a way to control other people because you've been conditioned this way. And it all comes back to that property crap that the Bible is built on. It's that women are property. You don't want someone being able to see your goods, right? That's yours to see. You don't want anybody else to be able to get pleasure from looking at your property, right? That's where this all stems from. It's all about owning a woman's body. When it comes to porn, there's lots of problems in the porn industry, lots of exploitation and such, but I think a lot of it is stemmed from our taboo Western society, right? I believe it's all stemmed from what we, in the descendant from a nation of Puritans, what we feel should be allowed in public. I'm not saying people need to be like getting it on a bench or whatever in a public park, but I think that our nudity taboo is way over the top in the West. I just do. But the idea of putting things like that on the same level as like adultery and blasphemy and theft and stuff like that, and even lying, it's just ridiculous to me.
You're opening the door, you're giving foothold to the devil. And so it's very, very important. This is what changed everything. It's very important that someone has a genuine conversion, that they're confronted with the moral law, the 10 Commandments, as Jesus confronted sinners, so they see what sin is. Sin is lust. It's committing adultery in the heart. It's lying and stealing and blasphemy and dishonoring your parents. Once someone truly repents, they submit to God, resist the devil, he flees from them, we have victory over him. Greater is he that is in us.
We just went over the fact that what if your parents were, just evil people, right? Like, I mean, like what you would call evil as a Christian. So, like, what about that? Are you still gonna honor them? What if you're trying to drive the devil away and they're like a servant to the devil?
It's in the world. So that's the victory you have against the spiritual darkness.
So I have two questions off of that, because let's talk about John really quickly. Based on your experience with him, would you have seen what he was going through as an oppression or a possession? What was your take on what was happening?
I really don't know, because way back then I didn't have the knowledge I have now about genuine repentance and closing the door. But I know there are a lot of, particularly young people, that have come under the sound of the modern gospel, which says, give your heart to Jesus, he'll fix your problems.
It's so weird that you're like, oh yeah, I had this friend who drank blood and he was possessed and stuff. Nope. Really? I had this friend that drank blood. You don't know him. He goes to a different school. He drank blood. That's such a weird, I'm still hung up on that.
That leaves the door open for the enemy, because there's no crying out, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. There's no genuine repentance. There's no godly sorrow, which brings about repentance. So that's why so many young people have so many problems spiritually, because they're not brought to a place of genuine repentance and faith in Christ.
John Hudson, I just want to ask you right now, and you got to come clean. You have to be honest with us here. Okay, John? Are you the John in Ray's story? Were you fucking with Ray Comfort, making him think you were possessed? Was this a prank that you played on Ray Comfort back, what do you say, in the 80s? Come clean. You can tell us. It's the jokes. It was a good joke. Ray's like balls deep into it now.
And what you said there is really interesting, because I talk to a lot of different people with different viewpoints on all of these terms, right? You bring up the term exorcism, deliverance. Everybody has a different definition of what they think these things mean. And some people react. It's just like with the rapture, right? You talk about the rapture and people get either really worked up or really excited about it, depending on who you're talking to. With deliverance, I almost feel like that term is the new rapture, in terms of it's a new thing. It's not a new thing, but it's a thing people are fighting about now. They're arguing about it within the church, and there's deliverance ministries. There are films coming out showing it. And then there are people.
A lot of people are flipping over to deliverance ministry because it's part of this evangelical MAGA movement. I don't know they don't know how else to paint it. It's all the same momentum. The people that are supporting the Heritage Foundation are the same guys who are spreading deliverance ministries. So, I mean, let's keep that in mind. This is Paula White was Trump's spiritual advisor, for Christ's sakes.
Who would say you don't need to go through deliverance. You have a genuine repentance, right? Everything you just talked about, that's not needed. If you're truly, making the devil flee, and you're fleeing from him, you're not going to have to worry about it. I don't want to get you in trouble, but I am curious to know on
I'm
that
already
front.
in trouble.
You're
I am
already
in trouble.
Where do you stand on that deliverance front? And when
it really does sound like something John Hudson would do, doesn't it, D? Like, I'm like, yes, this is a prank that John would play on somebody, some religious dude who he had to go see at a camp. Say, oh, I drink blood and stuff. Maybe have like a cherry smoothie or something.
Say deliverance, I mean the ministries that are centered on giving Christians in particular deliverance.
Yeah, like you said, if you want to split a church, just stand up and say, let's talk about prophecy. And it's the same with this whole deliverance thing. All I can say is this is from experience. I found myself at churches after I'd preached praying for people for hours. And I found it utterly exhausting until I understood that that person has to close the door themselves. Otherwise, you're going to get, remember...
how can prayer be exhausting? Isn't prayer... basically, prayer's like... the brain states are similar to meditation, right? At least that's my understanding. Now... maybe he's talking about worship, which is a different euphoric sensation when he said, because maybe he's using prayer different, like prayer to be like where a group gets together and you build yourself up to have, you prime your brain to have supernatural stimulation. Fake it till you make it, or believe it's Jesus or whatever.
Jesus told a story about a demon that went off and came back was 7 times worse because he found the door open again. So that door has to be closed. And that's what I usually, if someone has demonic problems, I say, well, let's go through the gospel. Let's see what sin is. And then you renounce everything you've been into. Turn from it. Say, God, I'm totally yours. I give myself. I submit myself to your lordship. I present myself as a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable to you, which is my reasonable service. And that's when you're a new creature in Christ. Old things pass away. All things become new.
Yeah, no, and I think that's really powerful. And there are some who would say, well, that's kind of a form of deliverance. Again, it's a spectrum, this notion of what deliverance is.
So just to be clear, deliverance is the non-Catholic word for exorcism. That's the long and short of it. Deliverance is exorcism for Protestants of all stripes. Deliverance ministry is exorcism ministry. It means that you don't take it means you don't take responsibility for anything you do wrong. You had a demon in you that you banish out, and then you're good. I believe the Scientologists call them thetans, but the evangelicals call them demons, and you get delivered from them instead of audited. But it's all the same concept, or as the Catholics would say, exorcised.
You mentioned something there that I thought was interesting. People coming back, obviously 7 times worse than they were before if they don't turn away. And there was another story, and I would encourage people to grab Out of the Comfort Zone, read this book, really fascinating. But this other story was about these 2 girls who had come to you for help when you were in New Zealand. One of the girls you named Jane in the book. This story, I mean, one of the quotes is that she was, quote, crawling on her knees, on her hands and knees, groaning, screaming, and making animal-like noises, that you witnessed this. And that's just not even the tip of the iceberg of what you saw. Take us through her story, because I do think there's so many layers to it that I think speak to what you were just saying.
Yeah, first I'd say Out of the Comfort Zone isn't about exorcism. It's just one chapter. It's a very exciting, true story that will encourage you. So, I used to preach in the square in Christchurch, New Zealand. It was the heart of the city of 350,000 people. I did that every day for about 12 years, almost every day. One day I just finished preaching and 2 girls came up to me and they looked embarrassed. And I said, can we talk to you about something? And I just said, is it about demons? And they were shocked and said, yes, we think it is, because one of the girls, Jane, kept having blackouts. And I said, well, come up to my office at 2:00 and we'll...
Do not go to Ray Comfort if you're having blackouts. That does not seem like a good idea. And if you do go to him and he says, come to my office instead of go to a doctor, don't listen to Ray Comfort.
Talk. And I had us 5 stories up, and I used to have something called the Drug Prevention Center, which was originally on High Street, which is an unfortunate choice of street names for a drug center, High Street. And we moved to this big dome building, 5 stories up, and I said, come up and see me. So she came into my office, and we talked for a few minutes, and she said she had problems and she hated her father and stuff like that. I says, I'll come back and pray for you, because a customer had walked into the drug prevention center. While I was talking to the customer, her friend ran out, crying and screaming out that Jane was manifesting. She'd gone into a blackout state and she was crawling on her hands and knees, like you said. That customer left really quickly. And I went in and began talking with Jane and praying, exercising prayer.
See, this is the thing. That's she's blacking out and having behaviors, and your idea is to pray for her instead of getting her some help. Just sounds freaking ignorant to me.
And telling her that she needed to get right with God, and that she should get rid of her trinket. She had these demonic looking things on it, particularly one thing that caught my eye. It would look like Tinkerbell in the Peter Pan thing. It was like a little fairy that she had around it. It just looked like, I didn't have a clue what it was, but it just felt like a goddess of fertility or something weird like that. So I said, get rid of that. And she felt free. And 2 weeks later, I received a phone call from a friend and said, Jane is having blackouts again. Can we come and see you? And it turned out she hadn't become a Christian and she hadn't got rid of that trinket. But I went to my office and waited for them, and a friend screamed out that Jane had gone into a blackout state halfway up the stairs. And I went down and she was leaning against the wall in a blackout state. So I went to take hold of her and put my...
You are not... No, maybe you are. I don't know. But I don't think... It does not sound like you are giving this person the proper... Or that you have the proper medical staff on hand to deal with what this person is going through. This sounds like extremely dangerous. Do not go to someone like Ray Comfort if you're having blackout episodes, fugue states, if you're having lost time where people are saying you're doing stuff that you're not. Do not go to a ministry, right? Go to a healthcare professional and explain what's going on. I'm not trying to give you medical advice here either. This isn't even medical advice. This is just common sense. Don't go to a minister for freaking if you're having a medical reaction to something or in your surroundings.
A hand on her arm, and she ran ahead of me, and I'm not exaggerating here. She threw herself over a balcony. It was like a 15 or 20 foot drop onto a wooden floor, and I instinctively ran after her and tackled her. And I had her around the leg. She was wearing jeans, and she was over bound. I don't know how I held on to her. I knew I had her life in my hands. And I screamed out to 2 friends who were in the drug prevention center to come and help. And we physically carried her to my office, sat her down, and she was in a blackout state.
So she jumped 20 feet off a balcony, and you still have not called emergency services to get somebody who can handle this kind of situation to come. Because you think she's a demon. And you tackled her. This woman that just had an episode, fell off a balcony, and now you're tackling her around her ankles, telling other people to come grab her as well. To come put your hands on this woman having a medical episode, potentially. Not cool. I mean, there are situations where you definitely have to intervene and touch somebody. But tackling someone who just took a fall off of a balcony seems a little bit extreme.
Sitting down in my office, manifesting all these different weird demons. And at one point, the dexterity was quite amazing. With one hand, she reached into a blouse and pulled out a safety pin, and under the safety pin... and
one of my kids has epilepsy. My ex-mother-in-law wanted me to get her an exorcism. That's crazy. How can he simultaneously not know what it is and know what it is? Yeah, I know. It's like at the same time it's like Schrodinger's demon. The fact that in fact blackouts and fugue states are things I would expect someone to experience after hanging out with Ray Comfort, for sure. Ray is not even a fake doctor like Kat. Yeah, just nothing. Just don't involve Ray Comfort in your healthcare plans at all. Sounds kind of fun. Go fuck with a local. That's what I'm saying. That's why I suspect that you were the John from the first story, John.
Tried to swallow it. I think 3 times she grabbed cords from lights in the office and tried to strangle herself. And the demon screamed out, "We're going to kill." And I said, "You can't touch us because we're Christians." And he said, "Not you, her." And it was quite horrific. But the climaxed in this. I saw that she was holding onto something around her neck, and her knuckles had lost all the blood out of them. They were white. She was holding on so tight. So I opened up a hand. It took me at least 30 seconds with both my hands to open it up, and I saw it was the little Tinkerbell thing. I grabbed it, walked across the other side of the room, and I used to make leather jackets in those days for people to order, and there was an anvil, like a little bit of a railway track, sitting on my desk. I got a hammer, put that trinket on it. I had my back to Jane. She had her eyes closed. These 2 friends were standing between me and her.
Are you going to steal this girl's property and smash it and destroy it? Something that's obviously important to this girl? It sounds like she's suicidal. And you're going to steal her property and smash it. I said the S word, yeah. I'm going to get a flag on the video now.
And this is no exaggerating. Every time I hit the hammer on that little trinket, the demons and her screamed like you wouldn't believe. I hit it 5 times, and each time, to the very second I hit that trinket with the hammer, the demons and her screamed. I scooped them up, opened the window, and threw them down 5 stories. But if you're thinking this is fantastic, hard to believe, again, think of me. I'm right in the middle of a horror movie that I couldn't believe was happening.
Wow.
What I heard was a story about how a confused woman was having a mental health crisis and trying to use to find religious solutions that fit with a potential faith that she was interested in, which was to come to you, Ray, instead of going to a medical professional. And your job as a responsible adult was first to recommend that, hey, why don't you go talk to your doctor about these blackouts and see what they say. Let them know if you do feel like it's something spiritual. You can tell your doctor that, because you can. You're like, oh, I feel like this is what's happening, because your doctor understands those feelings. And if the doctor says that you should come get some deliverance ministry, then come back to me, and then we'll do something at a set time in a set place, not on the 5th floor of a whatever, not in a drug rehab clinic. Why are you doing deliverance ministry in a rehab clinic? But instead, she came to you, and you told her she had demons in her. And then you convinced her that she was possessed and that she had evil inside of her. She got suicidal, came back to you and said, this is happening again, with her friend that obviously cares about her and her health. Came to you, and you wrestled her. You wrestled her to the ground, stole her property, and destroyed it. I imagine at the end of the story, everybody's going to clap.
Oh, and you know, you read these stories and you hear them. I'm hearing you tell the story, and I'm thinking, I can't imagine what it was like to be there in it. And did she eventually find healing and accept the Lord?
Yes, and also during that time, we had to stop her from trying to gouge her eyes out. Seriously, getting her fingers in her eyes. It was terrible. Yes, she came to. I said, what you have to do.
Like I said, she was self-harm is what she's trying to do. Talking about ending things. You are making me mad with how you're handling this.
Jane is renounced, and I named the demon that had a stronghold in her life. And this time she wanted to become a Christian. She got rid of all the trinkets, and when she left, she was free. I think she came into the...
Suki, do you want to know if Ray used his own urine in the stiffening process?
Santa the next day, and she was bruised, but she didn't remember a thing from being blacked out. through that whole episode. Not a thing. And she was...
Aunt Jer, that's exactly what I'm saying. Drug rehab clinics sound like the perfect place to prey on vulnerable people and do exorcisms. A mentally ill girl doesn't have demons.
Completely
exactly,
free, and I haven't heard
unicorn.
from her for about 40 years.
You know, it is... So hearing you talk about this, because you were saying these these prayers of exorcism, these exorcising prayers, and you said you haven't done that now since the early 80s. Would there ever be a moment in time where you would do that again? Or do you really feel as though your understanding of this has changed and it's more about the person renouncing these things themselves?
Yeah, I know if some guy was going to attack me with a knife, he's running at me, I would say I rebuke that in Jesus' name. I'd call on Jesus' name because I know its power. Jesus said, rejoice not because demons are subject to you, but rejoice.
I want to see this in action. I don't want you to move when the psycho runs at you with a knife. I want you to wait for Jesus to interfere and see how that works out for you, Ray.
Because your name is written in heaven. And they are subject to the name of Jesus. Demons tremble at the name of Jesus. But another reason I don't want to go out of my way to have an exercising or deliverance ministry is because after that incident, I would speak at different churches and the same demons would manifest at the altar, the same names. And it began to freak me out. I thought, I don't want to spend my whole life chasing demons. They can chase me if they want, but I'm not going to chase them. And so it's been freeing up for me to understand what true repentance is and the slamming of the door is. And
so the same names come up because there's only a limited number of demon names that Christians are familiar with. You're going to get your Baal and Moloch, or Baal, Dagon, obviously Lilith. But what's his name? The exorcist guy, the real exorcist. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. It's like escaping me because I'm trying to think of it. But he runs into demons like Loki and Thor. He ran into a demon that was Rasputin, and it was communist. You know, because Rasputin famously communist, I guess.
You said before about Hollywood, they love the darkness. The God of this world has blinded the minds of those that believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, as the image of God, should shine to them. They don't realize what they're involved in. You know, they say things like, he had his demons. What does that mean? It's a common saying and we take that literally. Yes, and they say other things like as sure as hell, and we know hell is sure. We know this world is very, very real. Their minds are blinded, and the only way to reach them is with the glorious light of the gospel. When they hear the gospel, it opens the understanding.
And that's where you've focused so wonderfully, you know, for so many years now. And I want to ask you before we round out here to a close about young people, because right now...
Thank you, Aunt Jer. That's exactly who I was thinking of, Bob Larson. It's been a minute since I covered Bob Larson. Probably be another few minutes before I cover him again, because this is covering demon possession right here is probably going to be my fill for the rest of 2024. But I may cover Bob Larson in the coming year. I basically have this year's Cryptic Corners and everything ironed out. That's kind of what I want to do. So, and I have time to work on it too.
We're seeing, I mean, I had survey data recently that was so shocking, and I brought this up a few times, but I'm going to bring it up again because it was so alarming. I think it was 43% of young people between the ages of 13 and 25 are using crystals or tarot cards at least once a month. And so we're seeing this explosion.
Based! I mean, obviously, crystals and tarot cards have a placebo effect, right? But you're taking that placebo effect into your own hands instead of giving it to someone like Ray. So I applaud anybody who self-contains their belief system. And that goes for Christians too. You read your Bible at home and just try to live your life the best you can. I'm cool with it. You know, you try to find meaning, and you know, some people I know will like open the Bible to a passage when they don't know where to go in life, and that's the same thing as laying down tarot cards. It's atheo-ritualistic. You know, it's telling your mind what you really want. It's like Ember says, she flips a coin, but it doesn't really matter what it lands on, because by the time that she's got it on her hand, she knows which side she wants it to be. So she knows which one she really wants.
Of the occult, it's being normalized in Hollywood more than ever, and it's everything from the Ouija board down the line. What do you think about that? How do Christians respond to that?
One thing I forgot to mention about Jane, she was...
Before we get into Jane, I just need to do something real quick here, because we're talking about Ouija boards. Look, okay, so you can't just use any Ouija board to communicate. You have to use the Holy Spirit board to communicate directly with Jesus Christ, right? The Holy Spirit board. Are you looking for a fun and easy way to communicate directly with our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ? Well, now you can with the Holy Spirit board. You can ask Jesus anything your heart desires, and he will answer back. The Holy Spirit board is the only spirit board that you can use without sending your mortal soul directly to hell. What will you ask Jesus? I'm not paid to do these advertisements. This is a product I enjoyed very much. I liked their commercial too. I should have pulled that up.
Terrified of the whole demonic world because her and a friend once used a Ouija board, and the Ouija board said that her friend, who was 12 years old, was going to be killed in a car accident. This terrified that 12-year-old, and she wouldn't even get in a car. 2 years later, a car came up on a sidewalk and killed her. And this terrified Jane after what had happened. So you're playing with fire when you're playing with demons, and we need to do what the Bible says and stay away from those works of darkness. We're coming up to Halloween. Halloween freaked me out when I came to the U.S. Came to the U.S. back in 1989. We went to the local Kmart, and I couldn't believe all these images and clothings that were just so demonic. It was just like walking into a horror factory or something. And so for the first 2 or 3 years, when it came to Halloween, this is no kidding, Sue and I would take our children and turn the lights off and sit there watching TV in the dark and ignoring people that came to our door, because we didn't want to have anything to do with Halloween. And then one day I got the revelation, hang on, sinners are coming to my door. Why don't I open it and give them a gospel tract? You know, there's something weird about having to go to sinners' houses and knock on their door, but they're coming to my door. So the first year that we did it, we gave out over 100 gospel tracts to people that came to my door and received gifts. So for the last 30 or so years, our ministry has seen Halloween as being evangelism day of the year. That's what we see it as. It's the day, it's the darkest night, and that's when the light...
No! So Halloween, as a pagan, it's like, it's their new year, but it's also, so all the people that died that year have been waiting for the door to open up for them to be able to go into the afterlife. So everybody that's died is like hanging out waiting. So that's why it's such an important night. And it's the night when the veil is thinnest. And you need to make sure that you get all the stuff that for your loved ones out. That's why people used to leave offerings and stuff. Because you want to make sure that people go to the afterlife with all they need. Today is actually the second day of Dias de la Muertes, which is Day of the Dead, which ironically lasts 2 days. Not really 2 days, though. It lasts 24 hours, but it starts at sunset yesterday and ends at sunset. Started at sunset yesterday and ends at sunset today, I believe. That's how it works. But some of my friends are Catholic of Mexican descent, and they do the altars and stuff for that. They look really cute. I imagine I'm gonna see more of that once I get down into West Texas. But anyway,
it shines the best. So we have what's called a Halloween pack that we make available. It's very, very popular. It has the most popular tracts to give to people who come to your door, and they can't resist them. But let me take it a little further if I've got time. If you want people to come to your door, leave your light on. put some balloons up so they feel welcomed, even put a table out there with gifts on and gospel tracts to give to people.
Hi,
Take
Jesus.
it even further. If you're a church and you want to see growth in that church, I've got a great idea, because I was a pastor for 3.5 years, the time of tribulation, and I know what it's like to go and visit strangers as a pastor, to knock on their door, say, hi, we're from the local church. And you know they're thinking he's after our money, and it's just awkward. But in this one night of the year, because of the evil times in which we live, you'll see parents walking with their kids around the streets because they don't want them going up to strangers' houses by themselves. So this is one night of the year when you can meet your local neighborhood without having to knock on their door. So if you're a local church, get a table, a big table, put it on the sidewalk or by the sidewalk in front of your church, laden it with gifts.
Here.
Are you so you all sorts of gifts, candy or whatever, even meals.
Yeah, so you better have some freaking treats is the main thing. You going to give out pamphlets or something, you better have some treats with it. Now, churches do a lot of trunk or treats around here. I support that. If you're helping your local community by making things safer, by making things more concise, then good, more power to you. But you do have to facilitate the services that are expected of Halloween, right? You still have to give them candy. It still has to be something a little spooky or at least fall themed to it.
And sandwiches, whatever, so that when your neighborhood come to you, you can give them gifts, say, hi, how you doing? What's your kid's name? Here's a gift for your kids. And you're going to break down every barrier there is. Scripture says, for so is the will of God that by your well-doing you'll put to silence the ignorance of foolish men. You'll silence their mouth. No longer will you be seen as a money-grabbing religious organization, but you're a light in the darkness because they've met you in your grounds, in your territory, and you've shown them love. And it's a wonderful night that you can reach the lost.
Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective on it, because there are a lot of people who would say you shouldn't participate at all. Any participation is wrong. If you hand out candy, I mean, like, let's say you put the tracts out with candy, or you hand out the candy with tracts. Is that something, in your view, that would be a great thing to do? You know, you're mixing the candy, and so you're doing that.
I guess it's probably better looking at me than looking at Ray, huh? But
really, your goal is to evangelize. Is that an okay thing to mix?
Absolutely. It wasn't for me for the first 3 years until I...
Are you going to listen to other people, though, Ray, when they talk about their traditions and their culture? Or you be like, no, my culture is superior. My Christian culture is better than yours. And you should stop doing yours and convert to mine. Because mine is better. No, I don't want to hear about yours. I just want you to listen to me about mine. That's not how it works. It's an exchange of information back and forth. And just want to address this real quick because there was something said in the chat. I do run a channel called The Transpositions. If you're confused about the whole if a boy can be a girl and a girl can be a boy thing, please come over to The Transpositions and listen to what we have to say. That's not how it works. It's not a boy becomes... No. And boy and girl are social categories. They're not, biological categories. But beyond that, come to The Transpositions. Somebody want to drop me a link so that you can learn what we mean and what gender means, and maybe the difference between the biological categories that you think you're using when you say boy and girl and the actual social categories that they are. Just a thought.
So the potential, Paul says, by all means, reach some. All means. And so we use Thanksgiving, we use Independence Day, we've got different tracks for all these days of the year, and we take advantage of it because we know on the 4th of July, people are on the streets for parades. So we've got a 4th of July gospel tract, a Patriot $1 million bill. We've got a Halloween $1 million bill designed to reach the lost. And remember Paul in Athens, which we've once talked about before. He stood up in Athens when they were given to idolatry, and he quoted Greek.
I'm leaving the Haunted Hive thing up, by the way, at least for today, because it's still the Day of the Dead. I don't like the spooky season being over. I tried to say I want to extend the spooky season. I'm petitioning the world to say let's extend spooky season to December 5th on Krampus night. That'll be the last night of spooky season. So then spooky season could run from a lot of people say they run from October 1st through like November 2nd or whatever. But I'm of the opinion that Halloween season does not start until the either the 30th, which is Mischief Night. But I start decorating for Halloween around the 13th. I like the 13th of October. Every 11 years, it's a Friday the 13th, too. And that's a very special. That's the long Halloween season. The one in 2003 was especially memorable and important to me in my development. And bringing the girl you see today before ya. So, no.
Poets. Sinful, probably adulterous Greek poets. He quoted them. What was he partaking in their wickedness by quoting? No, he was using them as a springboard to reach the lost. And that's all we do with Labor Day, with Halloween, and Thanksgiving. We use and Christmas, which you mentioned Christmas if you want to split a church. You know, Jesus wasn't born on the 20th. Oh, God, you know, and it's just like a can of worms every time you say anything in a local church. But here's a wonderful opportunity. So people are going to hell. We've got everlasting life as a gift for them. We should take advantage of this opportunity and reach out with the gospel.
You have everlasting. Now, I'm going to be frank and blunt with you. Everlasting life sounds horrid to me. And maybe that's because I have like migraines and stuff. So like velvety darkness forever and ever sounds so relaxing and soothing that I don't want your goddamn afterlife full of bright clouds and loud music and a whole bunch of people.
Where can people go? Because you mentioned and you showed the Halloween, pack that you guys have. I know you have so many other evangelistic tools. Where can people go to get all that?
They can go to livingwaters.com. We've highlighted our Halloween pack for this year.
What about Arbor Day? Do you celebrate? Do you have a deliverance for Arbor Day? To help you exercise tree beard. Yeah.
Out of the Comfort Zone's available wherever good books are sold. We also have, you can see spiritual things happening on our YouTube channel. YouTube channel's just passed 261 million views. We've got 2 channels.
$260 million. Got 20 people watching right now. And I'm debunking the nonsense that this guy's spreading to millions. And only 20 people want to see why it's bullshit.
One's called Just Witnessing, and the other one is Living Waters or Ray Comfort YouTube. And you can actually see demonic manifestations there, very subtle ones, where I explain how when the gospel is preached, watch this person's eyes when the gospel is preached. And you see them get distracted, and I have to pull them back and say, concentrate, because the God of this world is binding the minds of those that believe. So I want you to listen to what I'm saying. And it's quite enlightening to see it actually happening before your eyes.
Well, I appreciate you and your ministry, and as always, giving me your time.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you talking about this issue. It's so important.
All right. Now, that's been our demons for the day. We had Tucker Carlson apparently attacked by demons, and definitely not his 4 dogs that were in his bed with him that scratched him. And then we had, Ray Comfort with his exploits of exorcism through the, 1988 was when he came to do ministry in the U.S.? Yeah. But, and his tales of demonic possession. All right. Now, we are, again, not going to be live next week. So there probably won't be any more getting weird with it until I get to Texas. So in the meantime, this will have to suffice and hold you over for the next couple of weeks. I may have to do an episode about people reacting to the Holy Spirit board when I get back. That'd be fun. There's a lot of videos of evangelicals reacting to that. If you'd like to see that, let me know, because they flipped out about it. But I do want to actually end this segment on the Holy Spirit board. So I just they have an actual little short commercial I just wanted to play.
Hi, Jesus here. Are you still using a Ouija board like a fucking nerd? When you're using other spirit boards like these, all you're summoning is gargoyles and demons. And now introducing the new way, the only way to contact me directly, Jesus Christ! The Holy Spirit board! And this is a magic cross. You see the hole in the middle? It's like a glory hole to the mouth of me, Jesus Christ himself.
Is this even a real product?
It is. I have it here.
The power of Christ compels you to get yours today. So buy yours today. Click the link below.
Yes. Get yours today. The Holy Spirit board. Okay. So, that's gonna be that. Do you believe in demonic possession? Do you believe in demons? Do you believe Tucker Carlson was attacked by demons? Do you believe that Ray Comfort can deliver you from demons? Tell me in the comments down below. And remember to be kind, take care, and we'll see you next time. All right, live from the Hive audience again. Stick around, we're not done yet. We have one more section, which is Bree's Bestiary, where we're going to discuss the alleged species of grizzly bear known as the Texas grizzly. I'll see you all over there after this short intermission.
And I say, so what you're telling me is if I blow a hurricane through a junkyard enough times, over billions and billions of years, eventually after one of those hurricanes, there'll be a 747 fully loaded and ready to fly.
What he's talking about, one thing he's talking about biology here, in which case we're talking about like niche vacuums. So the tornado is the extinction event, right? The tornado comes through and wipes everything out. And then life starts to come back. So it's the space between the tornadoes that creates the new life. And at some point, one of those tornadoes came through and it wiped out some giant archosaurs, right? And this allowed these little scampering, warm-blooded mammals to have a chance. Tornado came through this little junkyard. These little tiny primates were able to start propagating and expanding and their ranges and moving into new niches and becoming more successful. Eventually, these little monkey guys even started to create their own technology, and that happened so fast. And eventually, they started taking aspects of other organisms on the earth and trying to emulate them, like flight. So then they built machines that could fly, and eventually they invented this 747 or whatever that he's talking about here. So this tornado, which the last big tornado I guess would be the KPG extinction event, did come through our junkyard. The myriad of life on Earth, it did blast right through that junkyard. What was it, like 65% or something like that of life on on Earth, where the iridium layer is, right? Where we can see on one side and on the other. So that iridium layer represents when the tornado came through. So the tornado came through the junkyard, and then as the organisms started to recover from that, and our little monkey hands started to want to build technology to fly, boom, the tornado in the junkyard did come through, and boom, we have 747s now. So yes, Ben Carson is right here. What happened, as long as we understand the metaphor, right? In the metaphor, the tornado is the extinction event, Earth is the junkyard, and the 747 is the result of the tornado coming through, wiping out the organisms that couldn't build 747s, and then letting the organisms that could propagate.
This legend raises a lovely problem. How does it come about that the face of a warrior is cut on the carapace of a Japanese crab? How could it be? The answer seems to be that humans made this face. But how? Like many other features, the patterns on the back or carapace of this crab are inherited. But among crabs, as among humans, there are many different hereditary lines. Now, suppose purely by chance, among the distant ancestors of this crab, there came to be one which looked just a little bit like a human face. Long before the battle, fishermen may have been reluctant to eat a crab with a human face. In throwing it back into the sea, they were setting into motion a process of selection. If you're a crab and your carapace is just ordinary, the humans are going to eat you. But if it looks a little bit like a face, they'll throw you back and you'll be able to have lots of nice little baby crabs that all look just like you. As many generations passed of crabs and fisher folk alike, the crabs with patterns that look most like a samurai face preferentially survived. Until eventually, there was produced not just a human face, not just a Japanese face, but the face of a samurai warrior. All this has nothing to do with what the crabs might want. Selection is imposed from the outside. The more you look like a samurai, the better your chances of survival. Eventually, there are a lot of crabs that look like samurai warriors.
Hello, and welcome to Bree's Bestiary, where we are going to explore the history, folklore, and legends about an animal I pick randomly because I want to talk about it. And today's animal is going to be topical because, as I've mentioned before, I'll be moving here shortly. And I'm going to the Lone Star State for a little bit, and only for a few months, but still, I'll be down there in Texas. And Texas has a lot of great wildlife that I don't have up here in the upper Midwest. So I'm excited about it. But one of the things that they have that we don't have in this particular region of the Midwest, they do have them in the Midwest in some areas, but we don't have black bears. They have black bears in Texas, which is cool. They have rattlesnakes, or diamondback rattlesnakes. We have rattlesnakes here too, but again, not as common. But scorpions and tarantulas are my favorite, and those are going to be abundant down there. Jackrabbits and roadrunners and armadillos and so many things I don't have here to see and take pictures of for you guys. So I'm excited about it. But one thing I'd known about for years and just never really thought much about it was West Texas has grizzly bears? Wait, what? Yeah, West Texas had grizzly bears because I knew there was a name for a grizzly bear from West Texas. It was a named species, right? It's not like speculative that it existed, right? Well, this is the story of the only grizzly bear ever credibly reported from the state of Texas. The one and only grizzly bear. This is its skull. It's still in a museum. It is a grizzly bear, though. the Davis Mountain silvertip in the fall of 1900 on the old campground at Rock Pile near Kent, Texas. C.O. Finley and John Z. Means killed this rare species of bear. The skull is now in Washington, D.C. in the U.S. Department of Interior's Stalking the Unknown. And this is about old silvertip. Now, before we get into... Yeah, I didn't have that. Before we get into too far into it, though, I want to look at this region, right? So this is the area of Texas that this bear is in. This is the southernmost mountain range in the continental U.S. By the way, the Davis Mountains right down here, and they're all contained within this same park, right? But these mountains, as you can see, butt up sort of against the Chihuahua border. Now, Chihuahua was the last stronghold of the Mexican grizzly. Mexican grizzlies lived in the mountains of Chihuahua here and here for up until the 1930s, right? So having a vagrant grizzly venture up into here is not out of the question. But they named it its own species, so yeah. Where was that? Yeah, this is there are bears in the mountains now, like it's got black bears, right? You can go see them. You can go interact with and take pictures of the black bears as they come out of the forest. Not nearly as much as there are, say, in the upper Midwest, but there's black bears here. Now, grizzly bears are not supposed to be in Texas, right? This is in 1899 is when it was shot, right? So it's not. This is the species that's not supposed to exist where it exists. This was published in the Texas Game and Fish magazine, it's called Stalking the Unknown. This hunter, C.O. Finley, that's this guy right here. He's the one that killed it. Now, they make a big deal about killing the last bear in all these situations. Like the last Mexican grizzly. I just decided just now not to show that, but I had a video that showed where they had it strapped to the roof of a car where they paraded it around. Oh my gosh, I almost overlooked that. Jester! Well, Bree, I appreciate your time and your ministries. This stuff is important. Well, I'm glad that you guys are happy to be here, listening to me talk about animals and theories and things like that. Jesus, what do we got going? Just trying to keep up with the chat, and y'all keep getting into fights. Control yourself, my friend. I don't know if you're claiming to be trans. I don't know about that, but if you are, you are. That doesn't really matter. It's what you do, not who you are. Yes, there was once a grizzly bear hunt in Texas, and it has no parallel in the wild animal history of the state. It occurred in the Davis Mountains, about 15 miles southwest of what is now McDonald Observatory, which McDonald Observatory is right there. Right? So we're like in this area here. Southeast of Livermore Peak, at the head of Mural Canyon. Let's see, Livermore Peak. Livermore Peak's over there. And the observatory. It's up there. So somewhere in this area right here. In the setting, C.O. Finley and John Means brought down the only grizzly bear ever known to have been killed in Texas. According to the record, the National Museum at Washington, the bear was killed on November 2nd, 1890, which I've seen mixed information about this date too. 8 years ago, after the death of John Means, C.O. Finley sat down and made a written report of the hunt and sent it to his brother, O.Z. Finley, the game warden now stationed at Lake Walk on Devil's River. O.Z. Finley was doubtless in the hunting party and knew the story, but the time had come to make a more complete record of the famous hunt that could be passed on to future generations. A brief note accompanied this write-up. Dear brother, I am enclosing the history and kill of the bear hunt the day we killed the old grizzly bear. John and I had often talked of doing this, but had put it off until now. He's gone. It is up to me, for I did not want to go and leave the most eventful day ever spent in the Davis Mountains unwritten. So, file this away to read as often as you'd like and hand it down to your children and grandchildren. This was written 4 years before C.O. Finley, Odie, died. Very fortunate we are, the public, as well as the children and grandchildren, are able to share the pleasure of this remarkable adventure. The name Finley reaches back to the pioneer days when Dr. and Mrs. D.T. Finley were among the earliest settlers in the Davis Mountains in 1885. Will Evans, in his book Border Skylines, refers to Grandma Finley as a person known and loved throughout the Pecos County. Pecos County? Is it across the Pecos County? The Finley boys found good hunting in the H.O. Canyon, where the family settled, and there they brought down the black bear and antler mule deer. Prominent in the new generations is Joe Finley, son of O.Z., manager and part owner of the Callaghan Ranch of South Texas, where hunters bag some of the biggest bucks to be found anywhere in Texas. It would be easy enough to abridge the story of the great bear hunt, but cold statistics should be warmed by a bit in order to get the feel of the players as they enact the mountain drama. And more than half 100 years ago, such an introductory warm-up is furnished by C.O. Finley as he proceeds to the story of how he, John Means, killed the Davis Mountain Silvertip, as the grizzly was called. I have been asked to write the true story of the bear hunt, on which the only grizzly bear that has ever been killed in Texas. As a prelude to this story, I will give a brief history of the beginning of the hunt, of what turned out to be an annual bear hunt by members of the old pioneer ranchmen in the Davis Mountains. In early 1890s, some 7 or 8 families of us, the Means, Evans, Marleys, Jones, Mayfields, Finleys, and a number of others, all met in what is known as the Rock Pile near Sawtooth Mountain, one of the most beautiful spots for camping in the Davis Mountains. Here we met several years prior to the noted year that we killed the old grizzly. In addition to our families, we always had a number of friends from over a good part of Texas, from Fort Worth, Dallas, San Antonio, and other parts to spend a week with us on our hunts. We also invited 1 or 2 ministers every year to our camp, which was as clean and free of bad language as possible. Never an oath was heard, nor a bottle of whiskey came to our camp. Now that sounds kind of boring. I guess if you're gonna have guns, though, it's good to not get too into the fire water. Folks came from all over Texas to take part in the annual bear hunt and renew acquaintances. There's a black bear that they hunted. Our party usually ran from 40 to 75 people, men, women, and children, and the dogs ran from young, untried hounds to old, tried and true bear dogs. We had from 100 to 150 saddled horses, and always took 3 or 4 old chuck wagons and plenty of good Mexican cooks. As good as one has ever cooked a meal around a campfire, and they always kept plenty of warm grub to eat. We always had 2 horse wranglers by day and 2 by night, called night hawks, to guard and herd the horses. In the morning, the old cook would be up early and have us a good hot breakfast ready for before daylight. It was cool in the mountains, so we were always ready when our nighthawks brought our horses up near camp. By the time it was light enough for us to see how to rope our horses for the day's ride. Such a time we had roping and saddling our horses. All horses those days were not pets, and every morning before we could get saddled and out of camp, we would be pitching with their saddles, and some with their riders, and very often old boys would get pitched off of their horses and would have to be caught. When everyone was ready, which was never later than sunup, and pretty cold in October and November in the mountains, which is also why I picked this topic for this time of year, someone would blow their horn and off we would go to the mountains, which was bear heaven. We hardly ever failed to get a bear, and sometimes 3 or 4 during the day. And every day or so, someone would get lost from the bear chase and kill a deer or 2. While this was all good sport, especially if you go into the chase and got to the killing of the bear, which was sometimes up a tree or in a cave or out in the open. It was awfully hard on the horses and men who rode hard and reckless in that rough country to follow and keep up with the hounds. When we got into the camp of the evening, horses and men and dogs were usually all in, but a well-cooked meal, a little rest, and a few cups of coffee, and we were ready to for a good talk and prayer of thankfulness by one of the ministers. We would then clear up a spot on the ground and dance the old square dances for hours. So could you imagine like getting up and square dancing around a campfire while you're hunting bears? That's so crazy. Then off to bed and good night's rest in our tents and on our old camp beds, and early the next morning we were ready for another day's hunt. Some days we had fine luck, and other days our luck was not so good. These hunts were made up of old men, young men, women, and children old enough to ride. Women and children would stay as long as possible, but not often did they get in a chase after a bear and see him killed. They would drop out, and a few of the older men would drop back to take care of them and see that they got back to camp. It was always uncertain which way a bear would run or how far. If he was fast, he would probably he would probably not fun over a mile or two. That's so weird having fun used in that context. He would probably not fun over a mile or two, but would climb a tree. But if he was poor, he was already hard to stop, and sometimes would get away entirely. When we found an old poor bear and failed to stop him, we always lost some of our dogs, and they would not get in for some time, a day or so, footsore and almost starved. That was the type of bear hunt that was an annual occurrence in those mountains and in those faraway days. But there was one hunt that stood out above all the others. And if you wish to go over the ground, here is Mr. Finley's picture of how it looked. Well, I start this story to tell you of the jolliest old days ever spent by our party or any other party in the Davis Mountains in the fall of 1890. On the 20th of October, we met at our old campground at the rock pile, about 75 of us, just as we had each year before, with everyone feeling good. The horses were fat and the dogs were in good shape. We anticipated a good time, and we had it. We spent this first 4 days with just fairly good luck getting a bear or two and some black-tailed deer each day. On the second day of November, that's today, on the second day of November, which was our 5th day hunt, we all left camp as usual about sunup and went that morning into the right into the mountains. We traveled some 8 or 10 miles, crossing up near the head of what is known as Sawmill Canyon, just north of Livermore Peak, and on the southeast over into the head of Olympia Canyon. Livermore Peak is the next to the highest peak in Texas. This is the canyon that Port Davis is on, and in going from the head of Sawmill Canyon through the mountain over into Olympia Canyon, there was a gap. This is called Bridge Spring Gap. Well, all of our party at this time, some 30 or 40 people, went through the mountains over into Olympia Canyon, with the exception of John Means and myself, as the party with all the dogs went through the gap. We dropped back behind and turned south up the side of the mountain, dropped out and rode along the top parallel with the balance of our party and the dogs who were down in Olympia Canyon. All the country is very rough, full of canyons, bluffs, and a lot of timber, from shin oak thickets to pine 50 feet high. Well, when John Means and I go out on top, we were possibly a mile or more from the balance of our party. We heard a dog yelp and then another, and pretty soon the whole pack was running and yelping, and the dogs and men rode up on a 4-year-old fat cow that had been killed up on the side of the mountain and then dragged down the hill about 100 yards into a big thicket, and part of the cow had been eaten. It was then that the dogs had started trailing the old bear, and when the bear heard the dogs, he pulled out from where he was, bedded up and near the cow he had killed, and ran out of the canyon south across the mountain, crossing out on top just ahead of John Means and myself. So we rode like, I don't like that terminology, like drunk Indians, really? Cringe. To keep up in hearing of the dogs. Just after we had crossed their trail, John looked around to the right and said, "Odie, I see the old devil. which had gotten out an open spot and stopped. Then we switched around some brush and rocks to where we could get a shot at him. But when we came out to where we could get the shot, the old bear was gone. And there sat 4 dogs, the only dogs out of the whole pack that would run his trail. There were various estimates to the number of hounds that started on that morning's hunt, the highest being 52, but the more conservative, and I will not say cowardly, members of the group began to drop out as the gravity of the chase began to appear. The hunters and even the dogs' sense of danger of attacking an animal powerful enough to kill and drag a 4-year-old cow 100 yards. Clearly, a black bear or cougar could not have done such a thing. So the dogs, as the chase warmed up, were constantly backtracking. They would come trailing in and had to be urged to resume the chase. If you want the opinion of the writer, he is ready to assert that those hounds had a keen sense of the internal fitness of the thing. If it is true that every dog has its day, these dogs felt no urge to die on the field of horror. So, as they neared the finish, even the immortal 4 had to be urged to the fight. And continuing the account, Finley said, "Well, we mushed them a little and got them to go on. We got back on our horses and followed them about 1.5 miles further over some very rough canyons and down into the head of Merrill Canyon. There the old bear had stopped again. Means and I had ridden as far as we could and had to leave our horses and walk down the mountainside to where we heard the dogs barking. When we got about 1/4 mile away, here they had stopped the bear. We met the 4 dogs all coming back, trailing along one behind the other to meet us. Well, we mushed them up again and got them to go back to where they had stopped the bear, which was down a deep, bushy, rough canyon. We located him standing with his head towards us in the brush, with the dog standing barking. We, I guess, I don't know, it says we, got down to within about 125 yards of him. We sat down side by side on a small bluff of rocks with our little short saddle guns, 30-30s, and began pumping lead into him. Ouch. We eventually hit him with our first shot as he began to pitch and bellow like a wild bull and made a dash at the dogs, but succeeded in catching only one old speckled bobtail hound that belonged to Bill Jones. The bear so tore up the dog's jaw and neck that he had to kill. Oh, that's so sad. Had to shoot his dog. I'm sorry. Bears don't hibernate, John. The other John. They brumate. They don't hibernate. They go into like a torpor. It's not real not true hibernation, but the Mexican grizzlies and Texas grizzlies, they didn't really even do the seasonal thing. They would, when the weather would get bad, they'd bed down in caves and stuff. All right. He failed to catch the other dogs as they were younger and could get out of his way. Failing to catch the other dogs, he came back and stopped in exactly the same place he was when we had made our first shot. We lost no time in shooting 4 more shots each into him, and he just melted down on his old belly. That's horrid. That's the thing about humans, though, and for most of our existence, it's been, that's rare. That might be the only one of these that's in existence. I need to kill it. I don't know why. We need not yet know what we had. We did not know yet what we had, but we knew he was an extra big bear. We took a little round and got about 100 feet above him and stopped to see if he was sure enough dead. We again were standing there. Means raised his gun and said, Odie, hadn't I better put one in his old head? He looks awfully big. And I said, no, let's not tear up his head, as he looked awfully big and one of us might want to keep it. About that time, a little black and tan hound that belonged to Joe Marley walked up and caught the bear by some hair and shook him a little. Then we knew the bear was dead, and down we rushed to look him over. When we reached the bear, we discovered the gray tips on his hide. John yelled like a Comanche and threw his hat as high in the air as he could and said, Odie, we have got a grizzly. To say that we were excited is to put it very lightly. Well, we turned him over, opened him up and removed his insides, and then turned him back again and drained him. Then we went back up the mountainside out on top to where we had left our horses and blew our horns. Finally, got 8 more men to come to us. The party was scattered out over the mountains trying to locate the dogs and bears. See, that drawing doesn't look like a grizzly there, though. We returned to the bear with the 8 men, but he was so large that there was no way to take him back to the camp. So we took his hide off, leaving his feet and head on the hide, and put the hide around the biggest, stoutest horse we had, and lit out for camp with the man who had been riding the horse, riding behind another man. We could not go straight through the mountains to camp and led this horse with such a load. The weight of the bear is estimated at least 800 pounds, and the head and feet possibly 400 or 500 pounds. So we had to go around and out of the mountains to the west side and out by my ranch. The horse was carrying the hide had thumped and almost had a lockjaw, so we had to turn him loose and get a pair of little Spanish mules and an old buckboard I had at the ranch to carry our hide on the camp. Why do they double up the words? There's the again. This makes it hard to read. I know this is like old-timey script and stuff, but I don't think there was ever a time when doing double the and wee and all that was the thing. Anyway, I complain because I reading out loud has always been a little bit of a struggle for me. I'm getting better at it all the time. I like to do it, and I enjoy it, but I can easily be tripped up by, and it comes with my own writing too. If there's typos or anything, I can easily be tripped up, or sometimes I'll read stuff out of order anyway. No, they just lost the rest of the records and evidence of Texas Grizzly. Yeah, what bears do isn't really called isn't true hibernation though. Very few animals. Rodents can truly hibernate. There's one species of primate that truly hibernates. It was about 9 o'clock that night when the 10 of us with our 3 hounds got into camp with our kill, worn out and hungry, not having had anything to hear since the day since before daylight that morning. You can imagine how good it looked to see those old cooks in their Dutch ovens filled with good warm camp grub and that black coffee. When we had unsaddled and turned our tired and worn out ponies loose and had unloaded and stretched the bear hide over the big rocks, we were the most excited bunch of people ever seen. Everybody was talking, some asking questions and some telling their stories of what happened. We all had seen a lot of this kind of thing for a good many years, but this was the biggest day hunting that had ever been pulled off in the Davis Mountains. The next morning, we cut off his feet and found that he only had 3 claws on one of his front feet and 1 on the other. George Evans, John Means, and I kept 3 of them and took them to El Paso and had them plainly mounted for watch fobs. Yeah, you can see it right there. It's a watch. And the 4th we gave to a good friend by the name of Tat Holing, who ranched at the time back north of Kent on the Delaware, but has since died. His widow lives in El Paso. Mr. Means and Mr. Evans always wore their bear claws for watch fobs just as mounted, but they were so big and heavy they did not like to wear mine. So I had a pin put on it for Miss Finley to wear so that she wears a pin that is different from that of any other woman. That's what the grizzly claws look like. This is how we know it was really a grizzly, right? The hide we sent to San Antonio and had it nicely dressed and gave it to Mr. L.S. Thorne, who at the time was the general superintendent of the Western District of T&P Railroad and a good friend of ours, as we shipped a good many cattle over his road in those days from Van Horn to Kent. Mr. and Mrs. C.O. Finley from Stalking the Unknown by C.O. Finley, the Pecos News, July 2nd, 1965. The hide we sent to San Antonio and had it nicely dressed. And is that the same passage again? Yeah. The head, which I kept Mr. Means from shooting into, I took home and boiled all the meat off in a big wash pot and scraped it clean. Scraped it and cleaned it up well and hung it up over our front door outside, and never expected anything to be done with it other than to be seen and admired by all guests. However, in the winter, a young man came from the Biological Department of Washington, came to the Davis Mountains to collect specimens of all kinds of varmints and fowls that are to be found in the mountains. Asking for lodging at our ranch, Mr. Finley let him stay, and during the winter, he heard us talking about our past fall hunt and saw the bear head hanging out over the door. When he went back to Washington the next spring, he related the story to the department heads, and they wrote and asked me to send it to them, which I did. After keeping it for several months, they sent it back, and with several long names attached to it that we couldn't read, but pronounced it a real grizzly bear, with the claim that there was no record of one ever having been found in Texas before. In about a year, the department wrote me again and asked me to return it to them, which I did, and they wanted to resurvey it. Then they wrote and asked me to buy it for the government, stating that it was a very rare specimen and that they would forever preserve it and attach any records to it that we might want to keep with it. Later, As the frame of this notable affair spread abroad, an effort was made to have the bear head sent to the Dallas Fair as an exhibit. Unwillingness to loan the specimen for the use of the fair is explained in the letter to Mr. Thomas, which was transmitted to Mr. Finley. Anyway, this is just, I'm going to stop right here as far as reading this. There's not much left to it, but it's all more, now it's just about the tracing the provenance of the skulls. But just needless to say, grizzly bears are not generally expected to be found in Texas. So when I saw this pop up on my feed, I was kind of shocked. Grizzly bear mauls hiker in Texas. Now this video doesn't have, the channel has 2 subscribers. The video has 2 views. One of them is me. But it's just chock full of misinformation. Let's check it out.
Humans and other animals in the wild. Like humans and other animals in the wild, bears tend to take it personally whenever someone gets into their personal space or challenges their predatory instincts. In the vast wilderness of Texas, the weather was unusually cool that day for September. Ethan Hale, an introverted outdoorsman, woke up early that morning with one goal: to explore the remote trails of the Chisos Mountains. The 34-year-old seasoned hiker had been planning this trip for a while now, and he expected to have a meditative experience in the solitude of the beautiful landscape views. But fate was about to slap Ethan in the face that day. He was about to unknowingly get into a terrifying encounter with one of nature's most dangerous animals, a hungry grizzly bear. Being an experienced hiker, Ethan prepared in advance, carrying enough food, water.
That's a black bear, isn't it?
Being an experienced hiker with one of nature's most dangerous animals, a hungry grizzly bear. Being an experienced hiker, Ethan prepared in advance, carrying enough food, water, and a GPS tracker in case he lost his way in an unexplored area. On top of that, he carried a compass just in case his GPS malfunctioned.
Yeah.
For a long time,
Real journalism debunking a channel with 2 subscribers and no viewers but me, but still.
He loved exploring untouched ground since he loved the thrill of taking up a new challenge, even if that meant going into areas other hikers had avoided due to the fear of the unknown. Throughout his life, Ethan hiked his way through forests, deserts, and mountains, but never in his wildest dreams did he expect to encounter a grizzly bear in a place like Texas.
And the thing that makes me mad about this is that Ethan Hale was a real person who died at 17, but had nothing to do with a grizzly bear, and they died at home at their home.
Although he knew that there would be dangers he could encounter, he expected to encounter animals like the famous Texas mountain lions or the desert rattlesnake. In the worst case...
No, he did not hike into the wilderness expecting to find mountain lions. That just isn't a thing. That just isn't a thing.
Scenario, he expected a black bear, a predator not as aggressive as a grizzly. With the curiosity of a cat, Ethan set out on a lesser-known trail that wound through thick vegetation, rugged cliffs, and steep inclines. He was excited by the mere thought of the new sights he would come across that other hikers, who were not as brave as he was, had missed out on. By mid-afternoon, he had trekked deep into the wilderness, far from the main park roads or any other hikers. The quiet was peaceful, almost meditative, as the wind rustled the dry leaves and the sound of his footsteps echoed through the canyons. When he reached a clearing, Ethan paused to take in the breathtaking view and get lost in the silent moment. The golden sunlight cast long shadows over the desert, and the towering peaks of the Chisos Range stretched endlessly before him.
And the Chisos is it's the same mountain range that we were looking at earlier, the Davis Mountains.
He took a swig of water and sat on a rock, enjoying the silence. In his perspective, this is exactly what he was looking for. An unexplored area just there for the taking. He seemed to be getting the thrill of the hike when things drastically changed. Suddenly, a strange noise from the bushes disturbed his tranquil environment. This noise was unlike any he had ever heard in all his hiking adventures. His heart started racing. He listened carefully to the surroundings, hoping that the growl was an instance of his imagination and that everything was okay. But the growl continued, growing louder and closer. Following this, Ethan slowly stood up, his senses on high alert, trying to triangulate the source of the growls. He scanned the area around with his wide-open eyes, hoping to spot the cause of the noise, as well as spot any...
I think it's an AI voice. High production value for sure. For as bullshit as the story is.
Movement from the direction of the growl, and that's when he saw it. An enormous shape moving through the bushes, less than 50 yards away from...
That's not a grizzly bear either. That is a black bear.
...where he was standing. As he watched, the
That's a
creature
black
emerged
bear.
from the bushes, with its large head lifting as it sniffed the air. It growled
That's a black bear. That's a black bear. That's a black
even
bear.
louder as it locked eyes with him. Ethan's blood ran cold, and he froze. Before him stood a grizzly bear, at least 7 feet tall on all fours,
That's a black bear. Not a
walking
grizzly
straight
bear.
towards him. As panic surged through him, his first thought was how he could get as far away from the bear's sight as possible. But years of hiking experience kicked in. He knew that running was the worst thing he could do, as it would trigger the bear's predatory instinct, which would make it run after him. It was a battle he would definitely...
That's a black bear. I'll tell you what, my advice for you in this situation, if the bear hasn't seen you yet, just to move away as quietly as possible. If you can climb a tree though, when it comes to black bears, you're not gonna want to climb a tree, but when it comes to grizzly bears, climbing a tree could save your life. They can climb, but not nearly as good as black bear, and they can't climb into the smaller trees and the lighter branches like we can as a smaller animal, and we're actually more arboreal.
lose, considering the speed the bear had due to its enormous strides. Instead, he slowly backed away, keeping his eyes on the massive animal. Despite his mind racing through survival strategies, the reality of the situation hit him. He wasn't carrying bear spray or any weapon, not even a pistol, and the nearest help was miles away. At this time, the bear had already spotted him. Its eyes locked onto Ethan's, and in a terrifying moment of realization, he saw the predator's muscles tense. It wasn't just a curious animal. It was hungry and hunting, and had just spotted an
Well, why, if it was hungry and hunting, why was it growling though? Usually when you're trying to sneak up on a prey item, you don't announce yourself. Everything about this story.
snack. Without warning, the grizzly charged at him. With all the adrenaline pumping,
That's a black bear
Ethan's
too.
survival instincts told him to run. But he held his ground for as long as he could, making himself appear as large
Was there
as
an actual
possible,
grizzly in
shouting
this
at the
video
top
at
of
all?
his lungs, "Hey, get back! Help! You get back! Help me! Help!" His voice cracked with fear, but the bear didn't slow down. It covered the distance
That's a
between
black
them
bear?
with terrifying speed. Its massive puss was tearing into the dirt, and its
That's a black bear.
tongue out, almost salivating for the meal it was about to devour. When the bear was just a few yards away, Ethan did
That's a black bear. No, that's not a black bear. That's a human, but the one that we just showed.
the only thing he could now, hide behind a large boulder, hoping that it would give enough cover from the predator charging towards him. However, the bear was more intelligent than he thought, and it did not seem to be in the mood to let the human snack go. Using its powerful paws and intelligence, it sent rock obstacles flying easily, rounding the boulder to reach Ethan. Ethan did not have the chance to react,
Black
so the
bear.
bear slammed into him with its powerful paws. The bear's claws raked his torso, shredding his shirt and cutting
There's a grizzly. It's actually a CGI grizzly, but at least it's a grizzly bear this
deep
time.
into his flesh as it growled in his face. In agony and great pain, Ethan screamed, trying to roll away from what seemed to be a bad way to die. But the bear was not willing to let him off the hook that easily. The bear knocked Ethan down and pinned him to the ground, with its front leg paws pressing down his chest, ready to deliver the final kill blow. At this point, Ethan could feel its hot, foul breath fill his nostrils as the bear bit deep into his shoulder and held on as if to enjoy the taste of Ethan's blood. The excruciating pain grew so intense that Ethan's vision blurred. Like prey in its predator's mouth, Ethan thrashed and kicked at the bear, trying to free himself from its snare, but the grizzly was too powerful for him. Ethan almost gave up and let the bear have his way with him, but suddenly, the bear paused. It stopped biting onto his shoulder and lifted its head, with its ears twitching, as if it had been distracted by something in the distance. Despite the pain he was in, Ethan heard what had captured the attention of the bear. It was the engine sound of a park ranger's car approaching them. Disappointed for being interrupted during a meal, the grizzly let out a loud growl, released him, and lumbered back into the underbrush, disappearing as quickly as it had appeared.
Black
Ethan lay on the
bears.
ground, barely conscious. His body trembled.
Seriously, the only grizzly bear we're gonna have in this is black bears. The only grizzly bear we're gonna have is the only grizzly bear we're gonna have is CGI, and then we're gonna have black bears.
From shock and blood loss. His breaths came in ragged gasps as he tried to assess his injuries, the world spinning around him. A few minutes later, the park ranger arrived, where Ethan was lying helplessly waiting for death's embrace due to the amount of blood he had lost. Seeing the condition the bear had left Ethan in, the ranger rushed into immediate action. He called for backup and started administering first aid to Ethan by trying to stop the endless bleeding. By the time the helicopter arrived to airlift Ethan to
And all of this never happened.
safety, he was drifting in and out of consciousness. This is because he had suffered severely deep bites, puncture wounds, a dislocated shoulder, and a few broken ribs. Fortunately for him, it was not his day to die. The news of the grizzly bear attack spread like wildfire. Everyone was talking about it, and it shocked many, especially...
Everyone was talking about it and it shocked many, yet you can't find any record of it anywhere online at all. Unlisted anywhere else in the world but on this video with channel with 2 subscribers.
Especially experts, since according to them, grizzly bears were not supposed to be in places like Texas. In an attempt to make sense of this, some argued that the creature had wandered off from its usual habitat, while others believed that the creature had been displaced by environmental changes. Whether the experts knew the answers or not, it was clear that the wilderness, no matter how familiar it seemed, could always harbor unexpected dangers. When he gained consciousness...
So the Chizos, they are close. They're down around the Davis Mountains and southern Texas, though. Like Mexican grizzlies would have been able to cross over, but there hasn't been Mexican grizzlies in a long time, unfortunately. Mexican grizzlies are extinct. All right, bye, Bryce. Yeah, the show's almost over here too, but Mexican grizzlies are extinct now. People like Forrest Galante and stuff probably want to go out and try to find some, which would be great. If they are still out there, I hope they stay hidden.
In the hospital where he was getting treated, Ethan immediately asked for the ranger who had saved him from the jaws of the grizzly bear. Although he had received treatment, his wounds were still too deep, and he had lost a lot of blood. He needed more time to heal his wounds so as to get cleared by the doctors and be discharged. Having been saved from death's embrace, Ethan used his recovery time to contemplate a lot about his decisions. Had he not pursued the unexplored area, none of this could have happened. Despite surviving, Ethan's close encounter with death would be a reminder to all hikers that even in places where danger feels distant, nature's unpredictability could strike in an instant.
Why not tell a real story about someone getting attacked by a bear in some place where they really got attacked by a bear, instead of this fake story about a non-existent person based on a real person who died, getting attacked by a bear, not in a place where anybody's ever actually been attacked by a bear, but just in the same mountain range where the only Texas grizzly ever was.
Yet Ethan was not the only person attacked by a grizzly and barely escaped with his life. In Wyoming, Danny Lane's day began like so many others. It was filled with anticipation and a love for the outdoors. Danny was a seasoned hiker and had spent years trekking through different wilderness ever since he was a boy. That day, the Wyoming wilderness was calling his name. He woke up early, packed his gear,
They're in Wyoming
and went
now.
for
We're not going to Wyoming. We're talking about Texas grizzlies. So this person claims they saw a grizzly bear in Texas. This will be the last thing we talk about today, but he's out hiking, and he is in, I believe I have it marked on the map here. Yeah, he is way, way up here. And is that right? I believe so. Yeah, way, way up here in this park. So let's hear what he has to say. I'm not going to watch this whole thing, of course, but let's have a look and see. Okay, so stop for a drink. Yeah, right here.
I think somebody else is over there too. I see something. I think there's a horse.
Right here.
Of course, of course. That's not a horse.
I don't know what he's... I mean, I'm assuming he's talking about this dark area down here, but any more details
Come on, bud.
about
We're
what
going
it
this
is?
way. I think that's a bear. Come on.
That is the saddest part about it, thing. The AI channels that are done with good production value and stuff like that, and then people believe it. They're like, "Oh, the grizzly bear attacked someone in Texas. I've seen it. I've seen the story. I didn't even know the name of the person."
Regular
And then-
trail.
and
That looked like a grizzly bear.
If it wasn't for someone like me saying, "Hey, no, I looked into this. This guy's there was an Ethan Hale, different situation altogether. I'm not going to go into here because it's, you know, I read his obituary and stuff. It wasn't anything to do with bears, and it's kind of fucked up to make it out like it was, and then to scare people into thinking there's bears in the Chizo mountain range, grizzly bears down there. I mean, not to say a vagrant bear couldn't somehow end up there from Mexico if there's still Mexican grizzlies. I mean, come on. But it didn't happen.
I didn't know there was grizzly bears down here, but that was definitely not a horse.
I don't know if it was a grizzly bear.
Right here. This way. All right. Yep, from now on, I'm definitely putting bear spray in my pack. Let's keep going. We gotta keep going. Because there actually was a bear out there looking at us from across the lake. We slowly backed away.
I didn't see the bear. It did not look like a bear to me.
That's some freaky stuff right there. All right, let's keep going.
Now he goes back.
Sooner we...
And there's the spot where he likely saw the bear. It looks exactly the same to me.
Oh, there's a big old pile right there.
The same dark spots and everything.
I don't
Right
see
in
anything
here.
over there right now. That big tree right there, I don't know if it's a weeping willow or what that is, but
I wouldn't call it big either. It's like a
that
bush.
was over top of it before. I'm seeing something. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's not the bear. Let's see what the binoculars say here. And even if it wasn't a grizzly, it might have been some other bear.
You could convince me if there's a black bear, maybe. It does not look like...
But it was big.
Yeah, don't walk
it was
towards the
brown,
bear.
It was a bear.
Spooky.
It had
No.
all the features of a bear.
Unless it's a polar bear, because if you don't want to die out of breath, just walk towards it. Yeah, if you don't want to die exhausted from running, because the polar bear is going to catch you anyway. Right? A shadow person bear, yeah.
I'm gonna, I guess, walk on over there and see what's over there. But
are you nervous, bud?
I don't know if it has a den or whatnot over here, so I gotta be very careful.
I think the last video proved to us that like the average person doesn't know the difference between a black bear and a grizzly bear enough to identify one from the other. I did that Terminator music. Saying it's right there. And I don't see any difference between how dark that spot is. And then when he goes back. Well, I'm just saying there's not something right there. But I don't know if it's an animal. I guess it could be an animal. Kind of looks like maybe it's a belly or something. But how could it be a cow? So it's right there. Stop on the spot. Like right there. That's the spot. I'm not convinced it's a bear. I think maybe a boar would be a better guess. It could be a boar.
But that area right there is
A
where I saw
hog.
it.
What do you all think? Hive. Like, I didn't look like a bear to me.
And if I see a bear that looks like it, or I guess even just a bear at all, I got a shot of that too.
Yeah, it'd be justified if we can see a bear. I'm not saying that there
Honestly,
necessarily
anyway,
wasn't a bear. It could be a black
wildlife
bear.
aside from just like insects and birds and stuff, but
Are you afraid of bobcats? Mountain lions will stalk you. You won't know a mountain lion's coming until its teeth are in the back of your neck, though.
Well, let's head down.
Slender bear. Yeah. That's it, though. That's all that this guy has on his bear sighting. What do you guys think?
That's a kill right there.
Yeah, finding a dead fox or cat
It
or
looks like
whatever.
it was a fox. I probably can't show this on YouTube, so I'll blur it out, but there's a kill right there.
Oh. Doesn't necessarily mean it was a grizzly kill, though.
Like,
anyhow, so when it comes to grizzly bears in Texas, once upon a time, vagrant grizzly bears from Mexico would travel across the border into the Chizo and Davis mountain range. Rarely, the one that was shot in the 1890s was an old bear, probably driven out of its territory, as they mentioned it only had 3 claws on one paw and 1 claw on another. So it had been through it had seen better days, and was wandering, probably driven out of its territory, looking for some place to live. And when they found it and killed it, and it was old and past its prime, so it wasn't able to compete. Now, does this happen in modern times? I doubt it. So I honestly don't believe the Mexican grizzly is still around. I wish it was, but I don't think it is. Chihuahua was their range, and I'm pretty confident that they're extinct. Wow, this show's gone way longer. I guess reading that report took a lot longer than I thought it was going to. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up the show, though. So yeah, as far as grizzly bears in Texas in modern times, I haven't seen any clear evidence of it. But you tell me, maybe you have a bear sighting from Texas. I don't know. But we'll find out in the comment section. As I said before, and I say again, be kind, take care, and we will see you next time. Oh, and I almost got into going over housekeeping stuff here at the end. As I was saying at the beginning of the show, there's not going to be a live from the Hive next week. There may be a live stream of some kind, but it will not be live from the Hive. And there will... I think there's still going to be a transpositions this week. At least there is going to be a transposition this week. I think I'm still going to be on transpositions this week is what I mean to say. But I may just be down to the bare minimum of what I have in my space. Regardless, yeah, we will be back. Should be back by the 16th, back up and running if everything goes according to plan. If not, we'll be back up and running on the 23rd for sure. But yeah, if you have any questions or anything, obviously reach out to me. I will try to make some content filler for that time slot, because I don't know if I do go live next Saturday, what time it might be. It probably won't be at the same time. Anyway, yeah, as I always say when I wrap up the show, please remember to be kind and take care, and we will see you next time.
With all the noise, pseudoscience, and political rhetoric clogging the airwaves about transgender people, it can be difficult to understand what's really happening and what's really true. Good news, everyone! Welcome to The Transpositions, your compass in the rugged landscape of transgender issues. Here, we strive to be the beacon of authenticity, providing a platform that amplifies the voices and experiences of the transgender community. From breaking news to in-depth features to breaking down the real science, we are committed to fostering understanding, empathy, and empowerment for all individuals across the gender spectrum. Join us as we navigate the complexities, celebrate the triumphs, and advocate for the rights of transgender people worldwide. Together, we can redefine boundaries, challenge stereotypes, and champion inclusivity. Subscribe today. The link is in the description.